A very good evening to all of you, and hope all of you are staying safe and keeping well. I'm Shivani Mutana, your moderator and host for this evening. And thank you so much for joining us from all corners of India and from all corners of the world, for that matter, for the launch of the Plug-in Alliance. This, of course, is the first of its kind technology alliance here in India. Now, we have an action-packed agenda ahead of us. Over the next 2 odd hours, we'll hear from industry leaders connected with the Alliance, deliver keynotes, engage in insightful panel discussions, hear firsthand from change-making partners who are already on board the Alliance, and end the day with an interesting hard talk session. May I now invite Neil Bhatia, who is the Director and Head, Startup Ecosystem and Strategic Industry Collaborations at Intel India, to deliver the welcome address and kickstart the evening.
Thank you, Shivani, for the warm introduction. Namaste, and a very good evening to everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. I have been given the task of welcoming you all. Hope you're all well seated to experience some great eclectic discussions over the next 2 hours as we unveil the Plug-in Alliance. I am part of the Intel India Executive Leadership Team responsible for the startup ecosystem and strategic industry collaborations. On behalf of Intel India, SIGN, and our distinguished members of the Alliance, I welcome all our esteemed guests today. We are excited to have you be a part of this journey ahead. The Plug-in Accelerator has been around for 3 years. Last year, when we completed the finale of the Plug-in Edition 3, I mentioned to Nivruti Rai, my boss, and the Intel India country head, that we have enough learnings that as a nation, if we desire to drive change at a scale, then it is imperative to ready a high-impact ecosystem that collaborates and thinks together. That gave birth to an idea of bringing the ecosystem beyond Intel and SIGN together on a single platform, giving rise to the concept of the Plug-in Alliance. It has been a journey from that idea till today. We just entered the 75th year of our independence. We all know there were several respected people across 100 years and more that enabled the journey of an India marching towards its independence. It also became evident that collaboration and increasing unity amongst the various constituents of our freedom struggle came together and enabled achieving the goal of an independent India. Now, As India enters the significant 75th year of independence, we are well poised and have an opportunity to create global and national impact in many areas. One key area is of the industrial segment that is already on their journey of digital transformation with Industries 4.0. Steve Jobs said, technology alone is not enough. There is more needed. Let's take a moment to look at the statistic that I'm sharing and what it means. On the left side, India is home to a significant industry base across MSMEs and large enterprises, which are aspirational to grow and compete on the global stage. In the middle, it's clear the investments are happening in this space, not only in India but globally. Lastly, on the right, this is some data that we breed daily. A very vibrant startup ecosystem which is growing, but more importantly, maturing by leaps and bounds. This makes it very clear there is need to collaborate. More importantly, if we need to achieve the scale for India as a hub of the industrial digital transformation, this collaboration also needs to happen at scale. We are always open to ideas and would love to hear from our colleagues in the ecosystem. Please do feel free to reach out to us. With this, let me once again welcome you all to the unveiling of the Plugin Alliance. I especially thank all the leaders in our Alliance members organization for supporting this collaborative initiative. You are truly the thought leaders. Looking forward to working with you all and building on the vision. In the journey, doing some great work together. Thank you and have a great evening today.
Thank you so much, Neil, for that warm welcome. I'd like to now call our next speakers on board, Poini Bhatt, CEO of Sign IIT Bombay, and Ashok Chandavarkar, Director Strategic Initiatives at Intel India, for their opening remarks. Now, Intel India and Sign IIT Bombay have been collaborating closely to give shape and form to the Plugin Alliance. May I first call upon Poini to share her thoughts first.
Thank you. Let me once again welcome all of you who have joined us today. As many of you may be aware, Sign administers technology business incubation activities at IIT Bombay. We support startups from start to scale stage. We have engaged with more than 180 deep tech and strong tech startups so far. It is our firm belief that in addition to the capital or investor, industry play a very critical role for startup success. It is this belief that has led us to partner with Intel India and Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, to organize Plugin Accelerator program. Jointly, we have run successfully 3 editions of Plugin Accelerator. The outcomes and learnings actually brought forth this idea of evolving this program from cohort-based time-bound accelerator into the Alliance. The Alliance is a long-term and ongoing initiative. It will bring together various stakeholders such as industries, startups, investors, accelerators and incubators, government agencies, and other ecosystem players on a single platform. The Alliance will enable continuous engagement between the members across various categories. My colleague from Intel, Ashok, will share more detail about the operationalization of the Alliance. We sincerely appreciate the members who have joined the Alliance to foster a common goal towards creating a multiplier impact in innovation and startup ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Poini, for the wonderful partnership between Sign IIT Bombay and the Intel Startup Program. I sincerely feel that this academia industry partnership has made significant contributions to the Indian deep tech startup ecosystem. Collaboration is at the core of Intel as an organization. We truly believe that collaboration is the most essential ingredient for spurring innovation and this philosophy has been truly ingrained in what the Intel Startup Program that I lead stands for. It is this word collaboration that led us to evolve our collective thinking into transforming one of the most effective deep tech startup programs in India, Plugin, into an alliance. This set the stage for us to establish the vision of the alliance, and some of the words that built the guardrails include open collaborative framework, nurture innovation, accelerate adoption, and increase global competitiveness. We deliberated a lot on the initial focus of this alliance. Working on making industries intelligent, or Industries 4.0, came from the feedback we received from the ecosystem and aligned with the country's vision of making India at 75 a powerhouse in manufacturing. In this short period of time since its conceptualization in April this year, we've managed to align on this vision with 50 plus other organizations representing all facets of Industry 4.0 ecosystem. The alliance is designed to evolve into a thriving community as more members join and participate towards accelerating Industry 4.0 transformation. The 4 key objectives of the alliance include building a high impact community, creating a roadmap for intelligent industries in India, being the go-to forum for innovative Industry 4.0 solutions, and as a result, building a future-ready India powered by Industry 4.0 enabled growth. Today, we celebrate the birth of this alliance, and as it takes its baby steps in the world that has been disrupted by the pandemic, I am reminded of the words of President Barack Obama. We have to acknowledge the progress that we have made, but understand that there's still a long way to go, that things are better, but still could not be good enough. These words will help us stay honest and maintain our focus on the vision and objectives of the alliance. With that, I hand back the stage to Shivani. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ashok. I can see how this is the beginning of something truly great for India and the world. Now, before we get into the actual launch, I'd like to call upon the woman who's been at the heart of this initiative, a woman who is passionate about India and technology as well as its people, a leader who envisions how technology could transform India and solve population scale problems both locally and globally. Please join me in welcoming Nivruti Rai, Country Head of Intel India and Vice President of Intel Foundry Services, to deliver the keynote address.
Thank you, Shivani, for such a warm introduction. It really excites me to talk about technology, technology changing lives of people, and the opportunities that lie ahead of us based on the technology that we are developing. So very welcome, everyone. Good day. I'm here to talk about how the advancement in technology, deep technologies are happening, and what we collectively need to do about it. So very first chapter of my conversation is what is happening in terms of the digital industrial revolution. Last several hundred years have seen some or the other change. So if you look at the 1700s, there was coal and steam that drove the revolution. And just to tell you, there were always naysayers that disagreed or did not believe in the technology advancements. There was Jevons paradox in 1700s that talked about, hey, let's not drive efficiency. Let's not drive efficiency for coal, because if we drive improvement, people will start using more of it and the raw material will reduce. Then came the 1800. During 1860, a lot of electrification was happening. During this time came the Luddites. What did the Luddites do or ask? The Luddites said, let's not bring a textile machinery for making fabrics. Let's continue the hand-woven way. Now, we lived through the compute and the communication revolution. people even questioned the internet. What is happening now is amazing. It's a fusion of physical as well as digital. The world today gives me an amazing picture of what tomorrow will look like. Many of you may have heard of non-fungible tokens. You know, these NFTs are not just for image, not just for paintings, but for anything. People can actually own moments of a game, a cricket game, moments of somebody's speech. So tomorrow's world is full of fusion of physical as well as digital. Very interesting times ahead, lots of changes, lots of technology advancements that will be required to drive some of these innovations. Now, many times we have thought of technology advancements and what are some of the basic solutions that these technology advancements provide. We've talked about data, we've talked about digitization, we've talked about solution and technologies. I truly believe that, working on artificial intelligence, working on cloud and edge, working on communication technologies like 5G, these are the enabling technologies that will drive the unleashing of the potential of data. Tim O'Reilly says that where there is data, there is power. But unfortunately, data comprises of a lot of noise. So we have to remove the noise and then look at the pure data. That is what is power. And how do we generate power out of data? Through processing of data, creating information out of data, enabling storage of data. India, honestly, is a data factory. The 1.3 billion people, each one of us generating tons of data every day with our choices, with our views, with what we shop, with what we enroll. So storage of data is absolutely critical. We process data, we store data, and then we allow the data to be transmitted. I honestly believe that very much like electricity, is transmitted to everybody's homes, the ability to compute data should also be like an ability that everybody can have access to from their homes. So unleashing of potential of data will be enabled through some of the technologies that I called out. AI being very significant and very, very critical amongst that. Now, oftentimes when we drive solution, it's not just one technology that enables. So when you think of phones, how did phones become so popular? The compute required for phone was not so hard, but the convergence of technology, the battery, the ability for processing, the ability to build cheaper displays, the kind of displays, 8K displays that you used to imagine for television sets was enabled. So oftentimes a solution is driven by a convergence of technology. And honestly, many of the use cases that you see, like I talked about phones, like I'm talking about 5G, like I'm talking about AI, happened because multiple technologies came together. Honestly, deep technology, the way we call it, the way we describe it, most all of deep technology leverages more than one solution, more than one technology to drive the solution. And more than half of them have, a very unique advanced technology. So for example, I talked about NFT. It leverages a lot of, Bitcoin-based technology, a lot of blockchain-based technology. So many of these deep technologies are reliant on something very advanced. If there are advanced technologies that are being leveraged, definitely, you need to make sure that you protect that technology through filing of patents. So it is very important to drive technology through the leverage of convergence of many technologies, enabling solutions, and the ability to protect that technology so you have an edge over your solution. I often talk about what are some of those areas that people are working on. So AI, definitely, many of us are contributing towards AI. But UN has come up with a list of focus areas for humanity. It is, eradication of hunger, looking at health, looking at education, and many of these deep technologies that, I'm talking about, that a lot of us are contributing towards, are trying to solve many of these, UN identified focus areas. 83% of the very, very successful companies have actually built physical products, not just something that is there, non-tangible. People have built physical products that are solving many of these areas that the UN has called out. Deep technology requires a lot of investment. I'm happy to share that India has invested about $1.5 billion. And we have, 2,500 companies built on many of these deep technology areas. However, there is a long way for us to go. Countries like Israel, which are the size of Bangalore, have 10x investment and 10,000 deep tech engagement. It is absolutely essential to take India from being synonymous to software alone into an area where India is synonymous to technology and deep technology and physical technology, which is enabling all of these focus areas of the world. So we need to do something different. We need to come together. We need to drive building of solutions. We need to drive scaling of solutions. We need to partner in ways such that the shortage of investment is overcome by the ideas that we have and addresses the need of what we have to build and enable scale. Talking about AI today has the ability to create 15 to 17% additional GDP to the world. Now, countries like China are looking at almost 30% growth. United States is looking at something like 14 to 15% growth. NASSCOM did an analysis which says India, if leverages AI correctly, has the ability to generate $500 billion growth to the GDP by 2025. While I talk about some of the gaps in deep tech investment, deep tech startups, I'm happy to share that every year, India is adding 500 plus tech startups from 2017 to now, 3.5x growth. India sees 55,000 startups, and a lot of them that have accomplished the status of a unicorn, 21 of them happened just in 8 months of 2021. Imagine all of this while the pandemic was raging. So if the pandemic was not raging, I bet you we would have seen more than 21 unicorns. Overall, 60 plus unicorns and a significant amount of growth, a lot in the area of tech landscape. If I tell you, what were some of the areas where, these startups were growing? It's AI, it's IoT, it's big data, it's, blockchain, augmented reality, virtual reality. Exciting thing is bulk of, 60 some percentage of these startups are in the area of AI and IoT. And what is exciting is many of these AIs based startups today, are in the areas of retail, social commerce, but I am also seeing many of them are growing into the space of education, health, e-pharmacy, coming out, of the needs that the world is seeing. So today's startups AI are working on the needs of the world. Tomorrow's startups are already looking at taking India ahead. I'm very excited to tell you that some of the startups that I personally engaged with, were also in the space of looking at quantum internet, to be precise. So a lot of exciting opportunities, a lot of exciting focus areas, and many startups that are committing to the needs of what the world is facing today. AI is transformative. I already know, because like I said, it's helping us in health, it's helping us in education, it's helping us with e-retail. A lot of us are shopping, our vegetables online. But honestly, AI is going to be pervasive. Wherever there is data, wherever there is value coming out of data, wherever there is value coming out of history, you will see AI. Consumer, health, finance, retail, governance, energy, you name it, transport. We are ourselves as Intel invested in many of the AI initiatives in the space of health, education, and smart mobility. Industrial Revolution 4.0 is counting on technologies, automation technologies like AI. WhatsApp is a good medium of sharing information. And one such share came to me where, a very simple equation showed that if we enable growth in efficiency day over day for a year, only by 1%, make yourself 1% more efficient, effective day over day, by the year end, you would have been 38% more productive. 38 times more productive. I stand corrected. However, if you lose 1% efficiency day over day over day, in the end, you might end up with nothing, almost zero. So AI driving automation, many of the other technologies enabling digitization to create efficiency such that not only do we see significant gain in our GDP, our lives, our quality of life will get impacted. In the end, technology is only as good as the value it creates. And the whole purpose of sharing this WhatsApp message with you was to tell you that each technology that we are investing in, the deep technology, it must translate into value for humanity in terms of economics, in terms of social, as well as technology advancement. So if we require building of a technology solution, we have to look at convergence of technology. If we have to look at convergence of technology, collaboration is very important. No one company, academia, government is good in everything that is required. I've already proven to you that solutions of today are based on multiple technologies coming together. So if we are building solutions for tomorrow, it is important to collaborate. It is important to therefore collaboratively invest. Once we are collaboratively investing, then we can build a solution. If we are building a solution based on multiple technologies with collaborative investment, only then can we think of scaling. Scaling not just for the 1.3 billion people that we have in India, but scaling for the 7 billion for the world. I'm happy that our plugin has housed many startups outside of India as well. I'm excited because industries, corporate enterprises have begun their 4.0 journey. Many startups that were housed in the plugin program, many of different incubators that many of you have. The startups are showing signs that they have arrived in terms of looking at the cutting edge technology. We have to come together and drive investments, collaborations to scale. I'm really happy to tell you that our Plug-in Alliance comprises of partners that are investors, partners that are startup, partners that are industry, all kinds, very large, medium, small, micro, all of them. We have government, we have academia. The only way to drive the $1 trillion plus growth in Indian economy, or to see the 50% growth that is touted for AI or any other technology, the only way is to come together. If we come together, we have eradicated or almost eradicated, and also I hope this pandemic, we came up with vaccines, we've come up with medications. We will eradicate the poverty. We will address people's health and education. All we need to do is come together. Under this, the aegis of this alliance, we not only have ideas, we not only have entrepreneurs, we have people who are investors, we have VCs, we have people who will help with regulatory and policy requirement. We have government with us. We have incubators with us. We have people who will handhold and enable go-to-market. I'm very happy to tell you, while our plug-in program has been very choosy, with only 6% of the ideas admitted into this program, I'm very happy to tell you that 66% of the startups under plug-in are already revenue generators. I'm very happy that over the last few years of journey, 3 years with plug-in and before even with the Intel startup program, we have hundreds of startups that we've incubated and supported, and many of them revenue generator. So I keep telling my team, what excites me is not just the number, because we can incubate many, but if 90% of them die in 5 years, what good is it? So handhold them to success, handhold them to be revenue generators. That's the goal. And I'm very happy to say many of the startups have even been showcased by the partner members. I don't want to name, but technologies like, vision-based analytics, looking at, different areas to address quality. Many such startups were showcased by partner members, so found customers from within the alliance. I'm excited about India turning 75. I'm excited about India being able to generate, trillion plus through technology. And I'm excited that we together have an opportunity to help drive the India at 75, growing our GDP, doubling, tripling, or even more. Let's dream to generate much more than $1 trillion through technology in the next few years. Thank you very much. Collaboration is the name of game. If we collaborate, we build and we scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nivriti. As always, that was inspiring as it was insightful. And now for the moment that we have all been waiting for, the launch of the Plug-in Alliance. To mark this special moment, I'd like to call upon and invite Nivriti Rai and Dr. Subhashish Chaudhary, Director of the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, to officially declare the Alliance alive.
We now declare the Plug-in Alliance open to the community.
As it celebrates 75 years of independence, India has come into its own as a nation that innovates, progresses, and prospers. It has high potential to build communities and forums that will help build technologies and solutions to achieve the vision of an Atmanirbhar Bharat and a globally competitive manufacturing sector in India. To enable this, technology alone is not enough. The ecosystem needs to collaborate across its constituents to nurture this journey of innovation and scale. To make this journey a success, we're announcing the first of its kind high-impact Industry Technology Alliance in India that brings together enterprises and SMEs, startups, solution and scale partners, funding institutions and affiliate associations. Introducing Plug-in Alliance, a driver for inclusive, sustainable, innovation-led growth to make industries intelligent. The Alliance aims to accelerate the adoption of innovative solutions for smart manufacturing across industries and revolutionize technology areas such as AI, 5G and Edge, machine vision, robotics, cybersecurity, mobility, and ADAS. Transforming India into a global brand for smart industrial solutions, Plug-in Alliance will enable this through a 5-point framework. Working with the ecosystem, the Alliance will enable tools to improve operational efficiencies and boost growth potential for our industries in their journey towards accelerated tech adoption. As India enters its 75th year of independence, the launch of Plug-in Alliance signals the beginning of a journey to leverage technology to transform India into a global hub for smart industrial solutions and enhance the global competitiveness of our industries. Come collaborate with Plug-in Alliance and be India's industrial changemaker with the many change makers already on board. Join the Alliance and help transform India into a global smart manufacturing superpower.
Thank you, Nivruti and Subhashish, for that. We, of course, can't wait to see the Alliance help transform India into a global smart manufacturing superpower. We also hope that the video you just saw made things a little clearer for you. And if you do want to know more about the Alliance, please visit the official website at www.plugin.org.in. And now that the Plug-in Alliance is live and open, let's call upon someone who is trailblazing the use of technology and digital transformation. Ola Electric is building the world's largest scooter manufacturing facility, a gigafactory with an annual capacity of 2 million units. So let's hear firsthand from Bhavish Agarwal, CEO of Ola Electric, on Ola's accelerated adoption of Industry 4.0. Over to you, Bhavish.
Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to be here with you today. Firstly, I want to congratulate Intel and IIT Bombay for this really exciting initiative, and it's probably one of the first such industry academia initiatives for a future technology paradigm that I've seen personally. So congratulations to everybody on that, especially to Intel and IIT Bombay. I also want to really thank my professor and the director, Dr. Chaudhary, for inviting me here. I am from IIT Bombay. IIT Bombay is my alma mater, and I grew up there, and I feel that the kind of exposure I got at IIT Bombay to initiatives like these in those times 15 years ago really helped me sharpen up my own perspective for the world and what I want to do in life. Right? And it's so good to see such an initiative being focused upon by two such leading organizations. And my personal excitement about the future of manufacturing and Industry 4.0 is obviously very high. And while Industry 4.0 means a lot of things like implementation of AI, advanced robotics, and IoT, etc., all these technologies into manufacturing, I believe the big theme that we all must recognize is that manufacturing is changing, industries are changing, factories are changing. Frankly, products are also changing. The products of the future need to be built in the factories of the future. And we, this organization, this effort by Intel and IIT Bombay should obviously definitely focus on creating this conversation around this change. But as India, as a country, we also have to aim for being the leaders of the paradigms of tomorrow. and not just implement Industry 4.0 techniques into India, but actually create these paradigms for the future. Be it the new machines for the future, be it 3D printing or any other machines. These machines need to be built and innovated upon in India. AI algorithms, or how to use vision in factories and robots. And today robots are largely what we would call blind robots in factories. The vision technologies behind them needs to be built here in India. And not just the technologies, but the business models and the companies that create these technologies. I really hope that India becomes the leader of this Industry 4.0 paradigm in the world. And this is a point of disruption in manufacturing technologies in the world. The past paradigms were built in countries like China. But if we all get together and efforts like these scale up, I'm very confident that the future paradigms of manufacturing will be built here in India. And it's also very important that we as a country do not miss this new manufacturing revolution, or the new Industry 4.0 revolution. And it's so good to see so many companies, industry efforts like these, young startups emerging in this new space. We at Ola also have really embraced the future of manufacturing with a wholehearted embrace. We are building our Ola Electric business. We are building the world's largest two-wheeler factory as we speak. We call it the Future Factory because we are focusing heavily on future techniques like Industry 4.0 techniques. And not just that we are procuring these techniques from people, we are actually creating these technologies here in India. We are creating AI systems to run our factory. We're building these systems in-house. We are collaborating with global robotics companies to improve the robots that exist in the market, to make them smarter and more perceptive, and to be able to act without reprogramming. So a lot of these technologies we are pushing through our Future Factory, and we really hope, and I personally really hope, that the whole industry comes together behind such initiatives and really makes India the global leader in the future paradigms of industrial technology and Industry 4.0. So once again, thank you everybody. It's good to be chatting with all of you through this medium, and hopefully we get to meet sometime in the future in person. Till then, all the best, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, Bhavish. We do look forward to greater collaboration and building technologies and solutions to power the vision of a globally competitive manufacturing sector in India. Now, what is an alliance without the compounded power of its members? So let's hear it straight from the many change makers who are already on board the Plug-in Alliance.
On behalf of Diageo, congratulations on the inauguration of the Alliance Industry 4.0 launch. In fact, Diageo was the second company to become a member of the Alliance nearly 6 months ago. We are super excited for this alliance because we see this as a forum where individual companies can go beyond their limited boundaries and tap into the collective wisdom of other industry members to solve some of the biggest challenges and get behind some of the biggest opportunities that industry faces today. We also think this is an excellent forum for new age industry technology startups to find the right mentorship, as well as participating in real life problems. So all the very, very best for the inauguration, and we as Diageo will continue to remain very engaged and committed to the success of this alliance.
The Plug-in Alliance brings together a global community of thought leaders, specialists, industry leaders, and startups to enable this journey of Industry 4.0. Honeywell is proud to partner with Intel to be on this journey and help startups traverse this journey, and to be the global and go-to forum for enterprises or MSME customers in India and for India.
Hello everyone, my name is Arpit and I work with Bloom Ventures heading our deep tech practice. We are very excited to be partners with Plug-in Alliance. We think this is the right time for an alliance like this to be put together. It is of multifold importance to this ecosystem in this country. First, it will allow for a lot of startups to get access to mentors, funding, ecosystem relationships, partnerships with GTM, and path to market, which is, I think, very, very important. We should always keep startups at the core of such offerings. Another important piece is all the ecosystem partners to get an unparalleled and unprecedented access to Industry 4.0 startups, which are completely, which are relatively hidden over the last maybe 2, 3, 4 years and have gotten created in a massive way. We are seeing a massive wave of hardware and software companies coming out of India. I think this is the right time, and we are excited to be initial partners at Plug-in Alliance. I think we should all put together our heads and brainstorm to make a lot of new programs that startups really want, and in such a way that the ecosystem benefits overall and leads to massive job creation, IP creation, and wealth creation from India.
Using artificial intelligence is Industry 4.0 new trend, especially in quality inspection, machine vision, predictive maintenance, vector environment monitoring, and smart warehouse and logistics. This new trend provides new opportunity to many innovating startup companies who are the target of this community. And by sharing and link up community members' experience, resource, solution, offer, and even business opportunity will help them become new unicorns in this era. Aeon, as industrial computer manufacturer and over 28 years experience in IoT hardware, we hope in this community to support startup companies turn their idea into real field applications and real product to the market. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Christine Bowles, a vice president in Intel's Internet of Things Group and general manager of our Industrial Solutions division. I am thrilled about the opportunities the Plug-in Alliance brings to the industry. Globally, alliances have shown the results where Intel is an integral part. The Plug-in Industry 4.0 platform is a first of its kind in India that brings together key stakeholders who will significantly impact the growth of Industry 4.0 in the emerging ecosystem. This platform builds a community and enables availability of solutions for consumption partners with mature, validated end-to-end solutions. I can't wait to see what we achieve together.
Thank you, leaders. It is indeed true. Success in implementation of Industry 4.0 in the Indian scenario needs the collaboration of stakeholders across enterprises, startups, SMEs, solution and scale providers, funding institutions, and many more among others. Which now brings us to our next session, a panel discussion on the topic From Factory to Consumer, Evolution of Industry 4.0 and the Path to Global Competitiveness. For this, let me hand it over to Madan Mohan Rao, Research Director at Your Story, to take it forward.
My name is Madan, Dr. Madan Mohan Rao from Your Story. And on behalf of all of us at Your Story, welcome to this panel today on From Factory to Consumer, Evolution of Industry 4.0 and Path to Global Competitiveness. We have 4 outstanding panelists with us: Subhashish Chaudhary, Director of IIT Bombay; Jayendran Venugopal, Chief Product and Technology Officer of Flipkart; Kedar Ullman, Chief Supply Chain Officer at Diageo; and Ram Praveen Swaminathan, Managing Director and CEO of Mahindra Logistics. I have a couple of questions for each of you before we come down to a last concluding question for all of you together. My first question would be for Subhashish Chaudhary, Director of IIT Bombay. Welcome aboard the panel, Subhashish.
Thank you. Thank you.
My first question for you is, how are universities and academia taking Industry's 4.0 ecosystem in India to the next level? Subhashish?
So, thanks, Madan, for asking this question, because at IIT Bombay, if you look at, as a matter of fact, all the older IITs, now we are passing through different phases of development in academia in India, particularly in technology university. What we have done in the first 30 years or so, we had something called IIT 1.0, where the teaching was more important. Then the next 30 years, which is IIT 2.0, where it was a research we brought in, and there were a lot of this emphasis, and we started doing very well in that. And now I think for about last 5 to 10 years, it's about IIT 3.0. And this is what the key period where we would like to leverage the entrepreneurial activities as well as connecting to the industry. So this has been our primary focus over the last several years. And for that, we have been working on several verticals, okay? Then of course, one is that we have the sign, which is our, the incubator. That is, once you have some idea, you come to the incubator and then you start to do the startup. But before that, you have to have the corresponding entrepreneurial, the kind of training, okay? So we have set up Desai Sethi School of Entrepreneurship, okay, which is actually training a large number of people. And very soon we'll go out to the public to have those who are working professionals to train them. The third vertical is actually the industry, those who are already settled, the well-known companies like we have Flipkart here, Diageo and others, can we bring them home? So we have started the research park right here in the campus. And once it is operational, we can have all these people right here so that we can work collaboratively. Now, one more aspect which you need to look at it is that, when we have a research, which is our, in the key thing that IIT Bombay or any other academic institution does. So how do you connect that to the industry? So because, the research output often ends at, something like TRL level 1, 2, 3, something maximum, and the student has to leave. So how do you take it up? So we are also thinking of setting up a TRL booster where we somehow make use of the industry into the system so that bring the TRL level so that either it goes and gets absorbed in an existing company, or maybe, something like, I would say that our own people would be very interested in terms of setting up their own company. So all these activities, if you look at it, it also needs certain kind of enabler, particularly if you talk about Industry 4.0. So we have set up several, the Center of Excellences and Technology Incubation Hub at IIT Bombay, actually, which is with a funding about 175 crores. We would like to start something more on the IoT and IoE front. And this is where actually we wanted to connect each and every industry. And for that, our primary goal is to talk to the MSMEs, because in my belief that if India has to go up, create a value chain, move up and create wealth for the nation, it's not one or two big companies. It has to be a large number of MSMEs collectively going up to make the lives of others better. And that's what will have a lot of social impact that IIT can generate. So we are looking at all these aspects and would be very happy to partner with any industry, okay, any other tech mentors, whatever it is, the venture capital, whatever they can provide. We want them to be onboarded, and we are very happy that this kind of initiatives are being taken up. So for plugin. So I'll stop at this point. We can, discuss more later.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for setting the stage. Let's now turn to our second speaker, Jayendran Venugopal, Chief Product and Technology Officer at Flipkart. Welcome aboard, Jayendran.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the panel.
My question for you, Jayendran, is what kinds of impacts will IoT and AI have on businesses such as yours? Jayendran?
Sure, Madan. I think I'll talk about different aspects of where we use IoT technologies and also AI, which has an even more broader context. When it comes to IoT tech, we have one of the largest consumer supply chains today in the country. And so we have a multi-tiered supply chain with deep reserves and fulfillment centers and for forward deployment of inventory. And of course, sortation centers that are spread throughout to do efficient sortation and routing of a couple of million plus shipments every single day that get delivered to customers in the vast geographical diversity that we have in our country. So to be able to efficiently do this, we significantly have invested in elements of robotics and automation and AI in every element of our supply chain. So for example, we have actually deployed automated guided vehicles for doing sortation at scale so that at that scale, it's not only a question of managing to our customer promise and SLAs, it's also about errors, right? Any human-driven process at that level of scale creates inevitable errors, and which cannot be ironed out by just having SOP documents and operational rigor, right? So that is where we have introduced automated guided vehicles. Recently, we just launched one of our largest in India B2C consumer warehouses with significant levels of automation. So for example, we have automated storage and retrieval systems that take this. So when we inward items into these large deep reserve areas, they're inverted without doing bulk breaking, right? So you will need to actually store them without bulk breaking, and these are all only possible through forklifts and others, right? So it's a very it's a very delicate process, which also poses a lot of safety concerns if not done correctly, right? At our scale, we try to deploy as much automation and robotics as possible so that storage and retrieval systems are done in a safe and high throughput manner. So these are some of the examples where we have deployed automation. So we have cross-belt sorters, for example, in one of our newest facilities. We have several kilometers of length of cross-belt sorters running throughout the facility, with paddle shifters that are actually doing sortation and sending it to different terminals for end processing, maybe quality checks, maybe robotic packaging. And we have moved away from like robotic arms, which have very limited degrees of freedom, but have some flexibility to be able to deal with multiple form factors, multiple what we call as LBH dimensions of packages, and being able to efficiently choose the right LBH package to pack a list of items that are now being sent to it for packaging, right? So these are just but very, very small examples of the complex use cases across every element of our supply chain. And we operate actually 3 different supply chains. If you look at it, what we call as a non-large supply chain, is basically handles the bulk of our deliveries and shipments. We also have large, which are like consumer durables, and they have a very different constraints around how do you handle consumer durables, right? So the weight is heavy, the form factor is very different than, let's say, shipping books, for example, right? And we also have grocery, which has even more complexities around freshness of produce in the fruits and vegetable setting and other things, right? Expiration and managing to that and all that. So every element of that is now being managed through deep infusion of technology. We use, for example, RFIDs and sensor tech everywhere to be able to efficiently process our totes and be able to process bulk loads across various thresholds in our sortation centers, loading docks, and others, right? So these are some examples. When it comes to AI, I'll just give a brief example. There is not even a supply chain example. In supply chain, of course, we use optimization tech and AI in lots of ways to reroute shipments dynamically, do forward planning, react to supply shocks and on-the-ground variability that we see on an everyday basis, which at our scale is inevitable, right? So you will have to expect failures in the supply chain and then figure out how you can recompute a massive graph with millions of nodes and variables to be able to find the efficient re-optimized plan, right? So all of this uses AI optimization tech and on-the-field inputs coming through sensor tech and IoT tech, feeding input variables into this massively complex model that does the rerouting and planning. Everything from beat planning on our last mile hubs to basically rerouting for middle mile and so on and so forth, right? So I can talk about it all day long, but I'll leave it at that and elaborate on it further as required.
Sure. Thanks, Jayendran, for setting that stage very well with those specific case studies. Let's turn now to Kedar Ulman, Chief Supply Chain Officer at Diageo. My question for you to Kedar is, we've talked so much about the opportunities. Let's talk about some of the challenges now. There are some security challenges in supply chains. So how can smart solutions improve customer confidence and business partner reliability? Kedar?
So, as you know, I work in Diageo. We work in the beverage alcohol sector. And security and consumer confidence is a very big deal for us, right? Because beverage alcohol sector is a high tariff sector. If a consumer buys a alcoholic beverage for, let's say, 100 rupees, 80 rupees out of that is excise duty, and 20 rupees is our cost of, the price at which we sell it to the government. So since the tariff barrier is so high, it provides a great opportunity for counterfeiters to start duplicating our products. This is very prevalent in normal consumer goods industries, but it's quite acutely prevalent in beverage alcohol industry. And hence, security, building consumer confidence, and anti-counterfeit measures are a very good source of growth for us, right? Because we believe that anywhere between 5 to 10% of the overall industry is counterfeited. If we are able to stop or at least move counterfeiters away from our brands, that straight away adds about 10% to the growth, right? And for an industry which is growing only in single digits, it provides a great opportunity. And it's not necessarily limited to our premises. It goes right at the back end of our supply chain, right? Because we need to introduce counterfeit measures in all elements of our packaging. If we are able to create a packaging which it significantly enhances our product security or authenticity of our product, and if we are able to give that confidence to the consumers, basis some simple scalable technologies, then in general, we should be able to raise boundaries for the counterfeiters, and counterfeiters will not go, right? They will go to someone else, but at least our brands will see that go. So this is, I mean, particularly for beverage alcohol sector, but also similarly important for consumer goods sector. If we are able to come up with smart, not very costly and scalable solutions in consumer security and anti-counterfeiting, I think that will be a huge boost to the entire consumer goods sector. And that's something that we've been actively looking for in the market and trying to use various small alliances to see if we can come up with something which can increase the boundaries for the counterfeiters. It's a great growth enabler for us.
Thanks, Kedar. That's a very good discussion that you had over there. My last question for this first round would be to Ram Praveen Swaminathan, Managing Director and CEO of Mahindra Logistics. Ram Praveen, what kind of impacts will smart logistics have on business? There's lots of talk out there on the different kinds of technologies available, but my question is more on what impacts you see smart logistics having on business. Ram Praveen?
Thanks for having me. And I think it's important to just understand the landscape and the imperative which we're all dealing with. Supply chains, I think today need to be reimagined more than ever before. For one, we are seeing very high levels of volatility across the world, both in terms of cross-border and domestic supply chains. A lot more bespoke supply chains, but I think both Venugopal and Kedar just talked about just the wide variety or diversity we have in terms of supply chain design. And supply chains are more global than ever before, right? So if you're doing books, you have one source. If it's furniture, it's different. If it's durables, it's different. And so as companies are trying to figure out how to win, not just focus on cost to serve, but actually focus on cost to win, there's also a larger imperative on sustainability, ESG, and so on. So the variables you're dealing with today are far more complex, and the imperatives of things that should influence your design are also changing. And therefore, I think to be successful, companies, and what we are seeing, with companies who we work with, really the focus is on four things, right? To win here, you have to drive economies of scale. You have to get much better at using assets, whether it's in-facility assets like inside warehousing or moving assets across different distances. You have to focus really on getting better on multimodal adoption, driving different forms of logistics, and figure out how to do omni-channel fulfillment a lot better. And in some ways, I think while the journey is still young, I think technology and smart supply chains are actually very critical to enabling these imperatives to match themselves, right? And I think we do very similar things, I guess, to what some of the other examples were quoted, whether it's in terms of in-warehousing automation, ASRS systems, unmanned vehicles. We're looking at pilots with drones and so on. But we're also doing a lot of work in terms of in-field or in moving assets themselves, not in-facility assets, but actually moving assets. And I think that, and I think there's a big opportunity to integrate these together, to really say how can you use technology to marry moving assets and automation inside facilities to create a new level of integration and intelligence, if you may. And I think a lot of the work which we are doing or we're looking at doing at Mahindra Logistics is really around those levers, because we think that's critical to the supply chain of the future.
Thanks. For the last round of questions for each of you, I want to focus a bit more on the future. So I'd like to begin with Subhasish. What are some technologies that IIT Bombay has on its radar, emerging technologies of the future, and how can they be harnessed? Subhasish?
So, there are two things, when you look at technology and, solving the problem of MSMEs and other, we realize that number one, one or two faculty is very difficult to do it because, finally you need a completeness of the problem that you're solving. Okay. So we have created several kinds of, there are two things that we have done. One is a set of this center of excellences. For example, very recently we set it up Center for Machine Intelligence and Data Science, okay, which has roughly about 70 odd faculty members who are, across all departments, okay, So they would be looking at some of the problems that, the Kedar is saying or Jayendran has been saying, right? How to actually get into that, okay? Where here it has people like, for example, even additive manufacturing and others, how to actually use them. So you use it even, all this, the technology, then bring it that technology incubation hub that I talked about, okay? And the other thing that I would say, like, for example, it need not be like always that, like even the health, like supposing, we have also created something for Center for Digital Health, because that's also, if you look at a service, then you have to bring in all the other components, analytics, others, everything to be into that system. We had people who have been working on the visual surveillances and others, that's another thing which is very, under something called NCETIS. We have another center of excellences. Then certain kind of thing called, there are companies which is our incubators. For example, Haystack Analytics, looking at all these gene, I would say the genomics aspects of gene sequencing. Then creating digital twins. There are companies there. Similarly, if you look at anomaly detection, either in long pipelines, like let's supposing you have your something like a petrol or the gas pipeline supply lines, how do you actually do it? All these damage assessment effects. So we have all of them. And maybe I would like to end with one very analogy. I think because now we are going through this pandemic, it's the technology today is more or less, it behaves in that COVID-19 virus. Okay, and I tell you what it is. What do I mean by that? You try to think that you have a control up over others, right? Like just like over the vaccine or others. Then what happens? There's a mutation. Something happens. It goes from alpha variant to beta and zeta, gamma, whatever. And the race continues. We also try to do it. So in academic scenario, we are empowered in some sense by our support from the ministry and other DST, many other partners, industry partners, to take up the challenge to explore something new. Because of course, in case of virus, it's a random. Okay, for us, we try to make a judicious kind of a plan to see that where we should head next. And we'll be very happy to listen to the industry. And that's what the whole idea, that let's work together. If something else is to be there, we'll try to find out our faculty members internally. If needed to be hired, we'll find out if there are experts outside. And we are doing professor of practice who has a lot of such experiences in the industry, put them together. So that's our plan. And I think, our invitation to all the industry, please come, let's talk to them, and we'll work out something which helps, because we understand that this is very, very important, because technology is moving too fast. Okay. And particularly in this sector, if you talk about Industry 4.0, the developments are very, very rapid. Okay. So the question is that unless we keep pace with this, we don't want to be left behind. Indian MSMEs and others, you have to be now globally competitive. Okay. And it's our responsibility from the IITs and other good universities in here to somehow to see that the plug, you talk about the plug-in, this is where the plugging that is required from our side, so that finally it's a very useful kind of mechanism, okay, where we bring in all people together and work and see what happens. So I would stop at this point. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Subhasis, for bringing out the importance of centers of excellence and ecosystem engagement. That's also the topic of my next question for Jayendran, which is in a complex market like India, how are integrated supply chains built, and how is Flipkart leveraging technology to ensure these supply chains operate at scale and also benefit your wide SME partner base? Jayendran?
Sure, Madan. See, the way I'll put it is the following, right? So if we compare our vision of a digital India and getting to a $1 trillion plus digital economy in the country, and compare it to other markets that have recently had exponential growth in the digitization of their economy, right? And it'll be interesting to note some of the very key differences that add more complexity and challenge to what we want to do in our country. So let's take China, for example, right? So if you look at China, so they have 100 plus cities, each with basically 1 million plus population. So many of their big urban centers are concentrated on their East Coast. right? So while they actually have a much larger digital economy pie, and their digital commerce pie, for example, is much larger than it is than ours today. They have some advantage, like they don't have the same level of geographic diversity in terms of the concentration, in terms of the economic centers. As we do, right? Our country is still extremely diverse, right? So in terms of geographical diversity, in terms of actually population density and the spread, right? So the second one is even vernacular diversity, for example, is another big element, right? So it's not a supply chain area, but that adds a lot of complexity to our digitization imperative. And we have been doing a lot of work on supporting vernacular languages to be able to reach people in the language of their choice and so on, right? So now coming back to supply chain, I think one of the important elements to bear in mind for our supply chain is that many of the solutions that are developed typically for the Western markets don't end up being applicable as is in our market, because if you look at still the cost of labor, the break-even timelines that you expect as a business from any automation technology that you deploy, taking out of the box any solution developed, for example, for the developed Western markets, Western Europe, US, and so on, and trying to deploy it here, will not give you the right ROI for your business, right? So you will have to usually innovate around cost of development, cost of R&D, and developing solutions that work in our environment, right? So we many times may not be able to have highly skilled operators, right? So the supply chains that we develop have to be extremely fault tolerant. Our infrastructure in the country is still developing, right? So there is not a very high level of predictability on routes, for example. Flooding happens, especially during monsoons, like routes get closed, rerouting happens, and there is no central place for you to even gain that intelligence, right? So your supply chain has to be built in a way that it's highly resilient, is able to take on the field inputs and develop a lot of localization. Even if you adopt some key technologies developed for Western markets, you need to develop a lot of localization to make that technology work for your business, your level of skill of your operators, and the level of disruptions that you expect in the context in which you're operating. So for example, just to take a simple example, right? Even addresses in India, when you're trying to operate a B2C supply chain, are very complex, right? So we don't have like an extremely gridified system where you are able to just use very simple OCR tech in your sortation centers everywhere to find the right place to send it to, right? So you need to actually, so we developed, for example, technologies based on geocoding, reverse geocoding, and based on AI, to be able to create our own polygon data based on very varied address strings that customers are likely to put in, right? So these address strings would be like, I mean, a Western address routing system will never be able to handle the kind of addresses our customers put into their address field and for their packages, right? So how do you do that, for example, right? So then beat planning, right? So there is a lot of variability on day-to-day on supply that you get for your beats. So you cannot have fixed planning cycles and expect that will work, right? So every day there is disruptions, every day there is variability in your supply as well as demand. And you need to be able to recompute on the fly and be able to react to it and deliver packages as per customer expectations and so on, right? So those are some of the examples. And recently, for one of the use cases I would talk about in terms of how do you develop a supply chain that is fault tolerant, resilient, is one of the areas where we saw that we were incurring a lot of lossage in our supply chain was our consumer durables business, right? So basically, when we try to ship large electronic equipment, and sometimes these are also sensitive equipment, right? So if you subject them to various tilt forces, shocks, and vibration as part of your various handling protocols of your supply chain, we end up having lossage in the supply chain, right? Because you will end up delivering not just a bad customer NPS because you're delivering a dented product or a product that doesn't work as expected on the doorstep. You're also incurring the cost when you have to take back and replenish the product to the customer. So we actually deployed, working with a startup through our Leap program, which is a startup accelerator program, technology to use IoT tech to be able to actually measure at every point during the supply chain the various forces that the packages are being subject to, and then use predictive analytics in combination with its rich stream of data flowing back to understand where we are incurring the most level of damage, to be able to tweak processes, things, training. So that's where the Internet of Everything comes into place, right? So it's not only like Internet of Things, but it's Internet of Everything. How do you integrate everything to actually create a supply chain that incorporates intelligence, data, big data, predictive analytics, and going back to a feedback chain that continuously optimizes processes, training, as well as lane selection and various other factors to keep improving on continuous goals like that, right? So we have a multi-tiered network, and every aspect of that optimizing the network involves a significant level of investment in R&D and technology deployment.
Great, thanks, Jayendran. Let's turn to Kedar now. Kedar, what are some trends you are seeing in innovation, digital innovation, and so on in your space? Kedar?
Sorry, there was a bit of a background noise. Can you just repeat that question?
Sure. Sorry about that. The question is, what are some future trends that are emerging in digital innovation in your space?
All right. So, I mean, I'll speak on the behalf of the larger consumer goods industry, right? So, the most exploding area in consumer goods industry is logistics. Logistics has seen a lot of digital innovation. And also inside the factories, right? If you were to go inside the four wall of factories, there has been a lot of digitization for health and safety, for factory automation, quality measurement systems, etc., etc., etc. Right? So these two areas are very, very active, and I think we are on a bit of in a slightly developed space there. What we would love to see as an industry is digitization of our entire planning process, because for any consumer goods industry, planning is a very important aspect of running the overall business. Unless you are sure of what demand that you have and how you're going to fulfill it, everything else is just taking orders from the planning team, right? So it can go horribly wrong if your planning team is not up to speed. We would love to see more digitization in long-term demand estimation. What are the big breakthrough changes happening in the market, which helps us manage demand on a short-term and a long-term basis. This is where we would love to see a lot more digital action. There are lots of established tools in this space, but there is a scarcity of effective tools for long-term demand predicting. I think this is where we would definitely love to see some action. Yeah. Secondly, particularly our business is highly commodity dependent, right? And we have a lot of commodity exposures, and commodities are extremely volatile. So if there is any way of using digital or smart technologies to do a more predictive analysis of where the commodities are going, it will add immense value to our business, because as leaders of the business, we are also interested upon maintaining volatility in our top line and bottom line. And if you have such a high commodity exposure, your bottom line is always at a risk of being very, very volatile, right? So if you are able to use digitization to bring some sense of steadiness to your bottom line and the cost structure, I think it will be immensely helpful, particularly in India. Globally, most of the commodities are hedgeable. In India, most of the commodities are not hedgeable, right? So that becomes a bit of a problem. So unless you have your handle on the commodities that you're exposed to, you will always be at risk, right? Counterfeiting is something that I spoke about. This is something that most of the consumer goods players would be very, very keen to look at. If there is any digital intervention in this space which helps us improve authenticity of our product, I think it will be a huge growth lever for most of the consumer players, right? And the last thing is the entire industry is now becoming more and more environmentally sensitive. So sustainability is as important as running our business, right? And hence we are looking at various mechanisms, and digital is one of them, which can help us save water, reduce our greenhouse emissions, and reduce the amount of plastics that we are sending out into the environment, and help us collect it and get it recycled at our own expense. Improve recyclability in our plastics, in our overall packaging. Right? So there is a lot of action on sustainability, and I'm sure most of the leading consumer goods players are looking at turning water positive, carbon neutral, completely recyclable, so on and so forth. Any digital innovation or any new technology coming in this space will get lapped up, and it will have a lot of currency amongst big consumer players like us. So of course, as I said, a lot of action on logistics, a lot of actions on in-factory automation and digitization. But the real need is in planning, in commodity management, anti-counterfeiting, and sustainability. We would really welcome stuff coming in this area.
Thanks, Kedar, for pointing out those very broad areas of innovation and trends. My last question in this round is for Ram Praveen. Ram Praveen, we're talking about competitiveness and innovation in Industry 4.0. So my question for you, Ram Praveen, is how is India faring in this as compared to, say, other countries? How innovative is India? How competitive is India in Industry 4.0? Ram Praveen?
Madan, so I think from a logistics perspective, so there's an incredibly huge amount of action. I think Kedar referred to it, and I think you heard from the Flipkart person as well. There's a huge amount of energy around this, and I think just a diversity of problems we have in India, just huge number of variables from finding the right addresses to having continuous weather-driven challenges, route accuracy. There's just a huge number of use cases to solve for, and I think there's a very large number of people who are trying to address that. So I won't call out one or two specific companies, but I think there's just a huge sort of players in the space, and I think that developing an ecosystem is even more important. And I just think that the opportunity, the problem is too large, and at least in Mahindra Logistics, we've seen that in some of our startup incubator programs. There's a huge amount of traction, and just the kind of solutions we're seeing is really energizing as well. I would echo a couple of areas which I think Kedar already mentioned where we're not seeing enough. I think one is really around how do we leverage technology to make the entire supply chain more sustainable. I think a lot of action right now is just around single-use plastic, or some early elements of carbon sequestration, but just how do you use technology a lot more to predict your supply chain's footprint, optimize it. And the second one is really integrating across technology. So a lot of the solutions we see, and we work with a lot of players, is really around figuring out how to do better network optimization, how do you deliver better, right? How do you operate your warehouses better? But actually looking at saying how do you manage an entire supply chain in a far more efficient way, and integrate, and finding technology platforms to integrate across, all those levers, allow you to actually build a much greater level of agility and resilience. I think that's still something where there's a lot of opportunity and work to be done.
Thanks, Ram Praveen. Almost out of time, but before we wrap up, I want to ask each of you one quick last question, which is, we've got many entrepreneurs in our audience. So what are some tips, some gyan you would like to share with our audience on how to be successful as a tech entrepreneur? Subhashish, some tips from you?
Well, I'm the last of the entrepreneurs here because I've been a faculty member. But seeing the, basically, I would say that entrepreneurship, of course, there is a certain kind of knack one develops in life, during the process. But I would say it is always good to get a good mentor in terms of some formal training in this, which probably would help improving the hit ratio when you are an entrepreneur. I think that's what I would, request all people to look into that, particularly if you're a fresh one.
Got it. Thanks. How about you, Jendran? Some tips for aspiring the next future Flipkarts of the world?
Sure, Madan. I think there are lots of problems to be solved, and the opportunity is endless in the country, right? So, and we are just getting started on some of these technology levers. So the one thing I would say is while it is fine to actually develop solutions based on a technology as a key lever, developing solutions that are looking for problems usually ends up being a harder route for you to find a product market fit. So while you may have a core of technology that has a lot of use case, a lot of applicability to use cases, I would definitely encourage entrepreneurs to early on seek out specific problem statements, specific use cases, and co-develop their solutions along with a vested customer who's going to give them the space to operate and experiment and refine their solution. So a lot of startups that we work with have told us that they gained immense value in trying to actually adapt their solutions and their technology to our use cases and needs. And in that process, their product itself became much more robust and better. So I would advise them to early on seek real customers, customers who are supportive, understanding of deep tech startups, and the fact that investment is needed from their time as well, from energy, and giving them the leeway. And that would be my one advice I would have for entrepreneurs.
Kedar, you're from a global brand. What do you see from where you are, and what advice would you give for the young startups in our audience?
I'll just build on to what Jayendran has said. I totally agree with what he says. It's important for any upcoming entrepreneur, particularly in the B2B space, right, to be more customer need focused and less product focused. What we've seen in the market is that moment a particular idea gets a little bit of attraction, you will have hundreds of entrepreneurs jumping into that space. As Ram Praveen had said, right, logistics is a buzzing area. Now you throw a stone and you will have 10 tech entrepreneurs in the logistics space. But they are just replicating what others are doing, right? And as they do more and more of it, the competitive edge goes down. Instead, if at the onset of their entrepreneurship journey, if they were to understand what are the white spaces in the industry, and honestly, there will be a lot of pull from us, right? Because we would love to interact with entrepreneurs who can do this, who can give us these agile solutions, which we really are not able to give, because fundamentally, as a large organization, we are not agile, right? So if they spend time with entrepreneurs through various alliances, their chances of success are far higher in the B2B space, right? If someone wants to go and set the world on fire in the B2C space, I think, so I don't have much to offer to them. But in the B2B space, spend time, understand what are the white spaces, where will be the maximum pull from players like us, and we'll be more than happy to provide them an incubating support. We would be delighted. They add a lot of important complementary skills to us, rather than being product focused and trying to sell something which other 10 people are already selling. Yeah, that would be my only advice to the entrepreneurs.
Thanks, Kedar. That's very good advice indeed. Ram Praveen, you have the last word. You've been engaging with startups.
No, I just first echo what Subhashish and others, all the other panel members have said. Just good mentorship, co-creating with customers, thinking outside in terms of use case. The only thing I would add there is, be true to yourself and don't try to be everything to everyone. One thing which we found sometimes in our incubator program is entrepreneurs or startups are trying to kind of respond to everything which people ask for. So my one advice would be, don't try to be everything to everyone. Stay true to yourself, right, and to the use case.
Thanks, Ram Praveen, Jayendran, Kedar, and Subhashish. We come to the end of the panel discussion. I think 3 key takeaways from me are the 3 S's: smart, scalable, secure. Don't just use technology for the sake of technology. Use it to understand the customer and the ecosystem. Scale your solution, especially for a giant market the size of India and the world, and make sure things are secure so customers and business partners are on board. Thank you all very much. I wish you all the best in your journeys ahead.
Thank you to all our panelists for your time and a very insightful discussion there. Plenty of food for thought. Now, coming back to the partners of the Alliance, let's hear firsthand from a few of our Alliance member leaders.
Hi, I'm Jayendran Venugopal. I'm the Chief Product and Technology Officer at Flipkart. We decided to join the Plug-in Industry 4.0 program as a partner since the mission of the program is very relevant for our business goals and needs. As a technology-first company, we deeply invest in emerging technologies such as augmented reality, next-gen AI technologies in areas such as computer vision, natural language processing, voice technology, and for our supply chain systems across several areas spanning IoT, drone tech, blockchain, as well as autonomous robotic systems to be able to do automation at scale. The Plug-in Industry 4.0 program gives us a tremendous opportunity to engage with deep tech startups in these areas early on in their journey and not only be able to support and nurture them in their growth, but also to be able to leverage innovation coming out of the ecosystem to supercharge our business transformation objectives. Thank you.
Today, we are looking at Industry 4.0 adoption across the globe and also in India perspective. To really look at Industry 4.0, there are three things which are essentially driving it. One is digitization, second is industrialization, third one is optimization. To have all these three to work, definitely there is an ecosystem which is required in order to make things happen. The Plug-in Alliance really brings in some niche areas of solutions which can be integrated to provide an overall solution to our end customer. So in this context, we definitely believe this is going to really help not only service providers like us, but also would help the industry in a much larger way to get what you call as solutions much faster, better, in a way which essentially is able to resolve their issues rather than waiting for grounds of development. I wish the Plug-in Alliance all success in their launch and look forward to working with the startup ecosystems being essentially introduced by this forum. Thank you.
I'm Priya Kapadia. I head Marico Innovation Foundation. The foundation focuses on innovative startups and helping them scale their businesses. We do a lot of work with this in the startup arena. We help rapidly deploy innovations, we mentor innovations, we help them showcase themselves to an Indian and a global audience. Our focus essentially has always been innovations. The Plug-in Alliance, if you see, is actually talking the same talk like we do. They talk about supporting innovations and helping them scale up and sustaining innovations. So if you ask me, the alliance between MIF and Plug-in Alliance is a very symbiotic one, and we're really excited to be a part of this collaboration.
Hello everyone, my name is Manish Mishra and I'm Chief Innovation Officer at Panasonic India. I'm extremely delighted to be part of Plug-in Alliance launch event. By the way of quick introduction to Panasonic, we are a diversified technology company that provides solutions to create a better life for consumers and a better world for enterprises and communities. We are a worldwide leader in development of home appliances, industrial devices, automotive, lifestyle, and connected solutions. At Panasonic India, we have been providing smart factory solutions to a variety of manufacturers to gather visualization data, analytics around performance, productivity, service-related issues, to name a few, in line with our Industry 4.0 offerings. Plug-in Alliance is a great platform to engage with industry ecosystem and talented startup around Industry 4.0 offerings to collaborate and strengthen smart factory solutions for various manufacturers in India. I look forward to engaging with like-minded individuals who are ready to take up the challenge to the next level. Thank you so much.
India is currently in the third wave of its startup evolution, which is driven by more B2B models, innovation, and IP-driven startups. We at Bharat Innovation Fund are focused on investment in this category. In the last few years, we have seen some really interesting startups build innovative solutions from India and scale it globally. And some of the startups that we've worked with have clients ranging from Indian conglomerates to global MNC giants. However, the journey has been hard and long, as we see from our various startups in IoT Forum, the TIE IoT think tank. Especially for Industry 4.0, India is still at its very nascent stages. For India to become a hub of leading Industry 4.0 startups, the ecosystem needs to be united. This is where the Plug-in Alliance comes in. Enabling partnerships via the Alliance would help startups accelerate their growth.
A big shout out and thank you to all the leaders. We hope that your words and belief in the Alliance will indeed inspire more members to come on board and collaborate for its success. Now, India, of course, does have high potential to build communities and forums that will help scale technologies and solutions. The ecosystem needs to collaborate across its constituents to nurture this journey of innovation and scale. And that brings us to our next panel that will talk about the roadmap to transform India into a global brand for Industry 4.0. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all our panelists for this session. We have with us Christine Bowles, Vice President, Internet of Things Group and General Manager at Intel Industrial Solutions Division. Raman Vedanathan, CTO, Strategic Solutions, IoT and Embedded Systems Practice at Tech Mahindra. Ashish Gaikwad, Managing Director, Honeywell Automation India Limited, and Sangeet Kumar, Co-founder and CEO at Adver. And moderating this session is Ramesh Mangaleswaran, Senior Partner at McKinsey & Co., who will take the discussion forward. Over to you, Ramesh.
Thank you, Shivani, and welcome everybody to this panel on Roadmap to Transform India as a global brand for Industry 4.0. It's my pleasure and privilege to be hosting this panel. To kick this off, I would request each of the panelists to just make a few opening remarks on where they see Industry 4.0 from their own perspective and what, in their opinion, is holding back this development. So, Christine, maybe you begin with your comments.
Sure. Thank you, Ramesh, and delighted to be here on the panel. So today, we really are seeing an acceleration of digital transformation coming into the factories. There was quite a bit globally of companies looking for how they could bring capabilities in, and we've had an ongoing study and engagements that have been happening across the globe, including in India, and there's been challenges that the factories have been facing and utilities have been facing. And now with the pandemic that we've experienced, it has only accentuated as well as accelerated where factories and the industrial suppliers are looking to bring solutions. And it's driven by some of the challenges that were faced during the pandemic, as well as what they were looking to bring in the improvements in its resiliency of operations, its skill and labor shortages. And while some of those things were looked at prior to 2020, the experience of the last year, 18 months has really accentuated the need for it. And one of the biggest aspects of what manufacturers are needing to do is really to understand how they can remotely access, how they can access data, how they can use it in real-time operations and present the data which had traditionally been maybe accessible by just being there present, and now the need for more remote kind of capabilities. So really bringing some of those aspects that we've had in the IT infrastructure and bringing it into the shop floor and the factory. And that's one of the biggest challenges that the industry and partners across the industry are trying to solve in this space.
And what, if you will, Christine, are the constraints that are holding it back at this point?
Yes, so I think some of it is some of the traditional infrastructure that has been there has been built more purpose-built for doing specific operations. And Alliance, and I'll get a bit into the Alliance, like what this is about, the Plug-in Alliance, how when you bring multiple players together, take a more open platform approach of bringing these assets together, it'll allow for the ability to bring some of those capabilities in that have been more traditionally closed systems. So I think that is one of the biggest opportunities to really realizing the capabilities that manufacturers are looking for.
Good. Thank you, Christine. Raman, do you want to make a few opening remarks?
Yeah, thanks, Ramesh. Essentially, I certainly agree with all the points which Christine has been making with respect to what is happening in the industry. And from a service provider, solutions provider space, I'm essentially working across the globe, looking at how do we essentially support many of these industries to adapt Industry 4.0. From a point of view of looking at productivity improvement, quality improvement, and things like. But one of the things which we normally face when we look at is many of the cases, 95% of the cases, it is how do we essentially go and convert some of those legacy equipments in the shop floor in order to adapt to these changes, in order to pull data so that you could make some meaningful decisions in order to help them create those kind of productivity improvements. But main challenges we have been facing so far has been not with respect to starting with the POC. I think a couple of years back, everywhere we go, we need to start with the POC. And beyond POCs, it used to be really difficult for us to move forward, essentially because people are looking at ROI. But thanks to COVID, I think people have started looking at pilots. But the bottleneck what we face now is from pilot to rollout. When an enterprise has got multiple plans, it needs a board approval because there is a good amount of spend that is required for a rollout to happen. So in order to create a business case to help them do that is becoming definitely a challenge. So that is where we are looking at consultants who can help create that end-to-end picture for them to see that if they do a rollout across the globe or across multiple plants across the globe, how do they essentially can get the benefits? And this needs to be a very clear business case, which the board looks at before approving it. So that's the bottleneck we are facing today from a rollout perspective, Ramesh.
Okay, so you're saying that the opportunity is there, conviction about the opportunity is there. You moved away from POCs to pilots, but the next big thing is to move from pilots to scale up and roll out. Okay, that is very helpful. Ashish, your comments on where you see this going?
I think the challenge of going third on the panel is that, you have the same points to me. And I'm so happy that, what I would have said, my panelists also, kind of emphasized on the same points. We, from Honeywell perspective, we've been in existence for 115 plus years now, and mostly on the industrial side. So we made physical things, it was a brick and mortar stuff that we did. But we, like many other companies, wanted to pivot towards, moving towards more software and therefore more software industrial. And we struggled pre-pandemic because there was a hard sell that most people were doing, and you just heard about POCs and stuff. We went through exactly the same exercise. But what we see now is that the need is created by the pandemic, which is a good thing. Instead of we taking the people to the work needs to come to the people. And all the points that we just heard about, remoting the work, making it accessible from anywhere, all of that is going to give rise to the IIoT as a concept, and it'll catch up. I guess when it comes to the specific barriers or challenges, as you asked, Ramesh, one thing that I saw is many a times people try and deploy the existing technologies. It could be on the sensors, it could be on data collection, it could be on cloud, just for the sake of applying that technology in the pilots. What would be nice is we truly solve a problem that either was unsolved earlier using all these technologies, or we solve it in a manner that it becomes much more easier, much more efficient, much more productive. And therefore bringing the aspects in the industrial world. Typically we see three things in the industrial world. You have the big assets in industries like oil and gas, refining, petrochemicals, minerals, metals, mining, power plants, etc. Lots of big equipment. You have lots of assets there. You have people who have the expertise and who then operate on those processes and those equipment. And then there is a workflow that needs to happen in terms of tactical work that needs to be done, and also decisions that need to be made at the corporate houses on supply chains and what have you. I think what we are looking at is how do we solve the problems that existed before and could not be solved, but with IIoT, we could solve it better. And therefore, if we can figure that out, that will remove a lot of barrier in the mindset of the people. That's how I look at it.
Very helpful. I think rather than technology is searching for a problem, come back from the problem and see how it can be solved, right? That's probably the important thing. Sangeet, if I can switch to you, you have a very different vantage point. I mean, you're a startup. So is this getting easier for startups in this space, or are you still trying to evangelize what you guys do?
Thanks, Ramesh. Yes, we have advantage of being a startup and agile and nimble and try out on some of the technologies which are not that matured to solve the problem of the customers. So I come from a different background. I come from warehouse background. So factories do require Industry 4.0 technologies, but also warehouses are becoming today the next factories. And the kind of automation and equipment which you see going into these warehouses, these are definitely, and the kind of investment which is happening, these are definitely next factories. And because it is a new challenge which is coming up, these Industry 4.0 technologies in terms of all sensors and robotics and process flow and warehouse, the software coming together to solve the problem. It is more, so customers are happy to imbibe these technologies. This is what we have experienced so far. So there are, let us say, I'll give you an example. So forklifts have existed for last 40 years, 50 years. And it was supposed to carry the goods from one place to another. It was never supposed to give the intelligence of what is happening in the warehouse, where from the materials are getting picked, what materials are getting picked, and what kind of traffic density is there, etc. And with some sensor technologies, Bluetooth, etc., and with software, we can get huge insight into the working of the warehouse and improving those warehouse parameters to effectively bring value to the customer. So these are the things which we have been doing successfully, getting great sensor technology, communication technology, and making sense out of the data which we are capturing with these sensor technologies. One of the questions which was asked is, where are we seeing challenges in implementing these technologies, and particularly in Indian context? So one of the places where we see a challenge, apart from conventional equipment, and no one will throw the conventional equipment in factories, but in warehouses where it is new, one of the challenges is the maturity of these sensors. So at least that is one thing which we see very often, and where sometimes it is not the industrial IoT which is in application, it is IoT where we use the consumer sensors and use those technology, because you don't need, these are not mission critical processes where you need those high-end sensors which should not fail anytime. But these sensors have to improve in reliability. At least this is one of the learnings that we have had from the last 5 years.
Wonderful. No, that's useful context setting. If I may just throw some questions to each of you. Christine, you have a vantage point across countries and across sectors. So if you can just lay out for me, where do you see high adoption, either sector, country, where do you see low adoption, and what if you will are the characteristics that separate the two?
Yes, so frankly, we are seeing across the globe the increased focus and the increased need for digital transformation. Now, to your point, there's different areas where different countries are more focused in different ways. So one of the things that we conduct on an annual basis, and we can see how they've shifted year over year. We have over 500 different companies that we've surveyed around the globe, as well as over 500 unique participants, from operations leadership to operators on the floor, and that's augmented with our own experience of working with our ecosystem and deploying. And what we see around the globe is an increased investment in digital transformation. And most companies either had plans that they were working and now are accelerating them coming into 2021 and the need for it, or they are actually testing. So there are some companies in some countries, areas where there is more proof of concept kinds of things or pilots happening, but there is more active investment. We are seeing particular industries doing more than others. One of the areas where there's been quite a bit of disruption and thus the need for increase, frankly, across the supply chain and then in the operations itself improvement is in the automotive industry. And of course, that there's quite a bit of that in the European region, the US region. And in those spaces, you see the focus on the infrastructure that needs to be in place and or the data and how they might utilize their footprint to drive that. And the supply chain disruptions and the labor disruptions have further accentuated that. We also see an increased focus, frankly, on sustainability and the policies, whether that's government-driven or enterprise-driven relative to addressing the climate change and concerns. We do see that as an increased focus, in particular. And by the way, you're seeing that more and more global. Now, the timeline might be different for different countries and enterprises. But definitely we are seeing that as a global focus as well. Now, across the globe, there is this focus of organizational agility and resiliency, and how might you use the capabilities of bringing in either improved infrastructure, so really looking at the network and connectivity within the factory, or the use of cloud to edge kind of technology to get access to the data. There is quite a bit of focus, particularly in large manufacturers, in how they are going to do this in order to improve their overall remote visibility, management and maintenance, as well as how do they optimize the overall workflow automation. With that said, across the board, there is a focus on how do I utilize some of these new capabilities, such as machine learning, machine vision, to bring it into my operations for improved defect detection or flow of information across the factory or shop floor. That is happening across the board, and the realization that I can bring this in today, and we are seeing that in all regions, frankly. So a lot of investment happening in this space.
Lots happening and lots happening all over. Raman, if I can shift to you, the question I would have is, as a services and solution provider, do you see this as a way of India servicing the world? What, if you will, are India's unique strengths here?
When you look at the global place versus India from a point of view of Industry 4.0 adoption, there are a lot of challenges when you want to implement it in India, essentially because many of the industries have not gone into Industry 3.0 itself for it to jump to 4.0. So many of these have been built for purpose, and when you want to adopt it, there needs to be a lot of customization, and cost is going to be definitely an important factor here when somebody needs to essentially adapt it. So it's going to be really very important, and many of the Indian manufacturers are reaching out definitely to service providers and solution providers to see how we could help them in this journey, because they definitely want to do it, but they want to do it in a way where at some point in time, the traditional things which they have been doing has to coexist with whatever we are doing and need to leap into the next stage in a gradual manner rather than essentially jump all of a sudden, because they essentially want to do the gradual change there. And that is what we essentially see as something that is happening. But one thing is, when we do some of this solutioning here with respect to converting some of these legacy systems to full data and things like that, we are essentially doing it in such a way that we are able to leverage this across the globe as well, because it is not that only India has this challenge. The challenge is there everywhere, but maybe in India, the legacies are much more legacy compared to that of the developed countries or developing countries. So that is one challenge which we are essentially trying to address. And from a solution point of view, we are trying to build some of those building blocks which can help. And one of the interesting problems we are also seeing is when you go into your shop floor, there is quite a good amount of connectivity technology that is prevalent today. So from plant to plant, it varies. So you need to essentially create some kind of gateway which will really help to bring in multiple things and then later stream it as one particular kind of protocol, which essentially can be adopted when you want to do a rollout. Because you cannot be customizing it for 10 different factories, which the same enterprise has. And these factories have come up at different points in time. So each one has got a different kind of what you call maturity level. So what we did is we created a kind of assessment framework which really helps to identify what are the various elements which are there in each of those factories. Can you create a baseline so that up to that baseline, you might need to customize, but beyond that baseline, it can essentially be rolled out. Because that is what people look at, because if I need to do a rollout, it has to be something that I should be able to repeat rather than customize everywhere. The customize cannot be ruled out totally, but customization is required. But it has to be kept to a bare minimum so that we are able to take up the what you call economies of scale when you need to do the implementation part. So this thing is, yes, whatever we built here can be taken to other countries abroad. When we essentially look at it from a point of view of standardizing them and ensuring that we have building blocks which can really which can be leveraged in order to help the rollout. Because my focus is more from a rollout perspective rather than doing a pilot or a POC, because you can always do that. But rollout is going to be the challenge when you need to essentially want to ensure that we are able to leverage the benefits that are going to come in. Whether it is like what Christian talked about from a point of view of having image-based solutions to help in the quality part of it, or connectivity solutions in order to ensure that we are able to get the data and improve the OEE of the equipment.
Got it. Ashish, if I can shift to you and building on something that Raman just said, is this an opportunity for us to leapfrog directly into Industry 4.0? I mean, do we need to go through the stages? And I guess this related question is, where have you seen real business benefits? You see it on the throughput side, you see it on the quality side. If you can cover those two, right? And from an India perspective, if you can talk about those two things, can we leapfrog, and where is the biggest bang for the buck?
Ramesh, the short answer is absolutely yes. We can leapfrog, and we've done that in other areas. Where we adopted a technology a little late. It came to India a little late, but then we really leapt forward. It's the same thing here. Maybe the industries that we serve, which are the heavy capex intensive industries, there is an element of how do we not just throw away the old investment and therefore retrofit some of the stuff so that we can take it to the Industry 4.0 architecture. I think Raman elaborated on multiple points just now. We have very similar thoughts on as far as taking the industry towards the IIoT or the 4.0 is concerned. I guess I'm going to talk about a little bit more, because the time is right in India right now, where the large companies can afford to do these things, right? I mean, they have the money. Maybe a lot of companies right now are under leveraged on their balance sheet. So I think they will need, the interest rates are low. So people will take some good bets, and this IIoT 4.0 digitization, all of that is in the mix. So I'm very bullish about that. Where I think we need to work as an industry in India is not just looking at the stuff that we have tried outside, maybe in the developed countries, and just bring the same solutions back and apply the same stuff. We will have to also think grounds up and solve the problems that are very unique to India. And there are many such problems that are unique to India. That's where sometimes we probably fall short. That is point number one. Point number two, I would like to say is when the government is pushing for the self-reliance, the mission for Atmanirbhar Bharat, they also want to do it inclusively. So they want to include the small and medium enterprises, as you know, and those have lagged behind in the past because of lack of capital, because of lack of knowledge, stuff like that. Now, can we do something that will be a win-win, which means we provide solutions to these small and medium enterprises that also leapfrog, to get to your question, not just the top and the big companies. And can we therefore do it at the right cost and at the scale at which it will be required? That's an unsolved problem to me as far as IIoT is concerned, and it is a challenge that is up for grabs for everybody, and we can really collaborate on that and make sure that the ecosystem that we will develop is not just for the top of the pyramid, but also for the middle of the pyramid, and maybe also for the bottom of the pyramid. I think that's where I would like to express my thoughts. We at Honeywell are working on some of those, and I'm looking forward to some of the other panelists and industry colleagues to collaborate on this problem to be solved. Where do I see examples? The bit that you asked me about, I think it's there in all the industries that we serve. The recent thing that comes to my mind is about the vaccine distribution, which is such a hot topic in the country right now. And we want to make sure that the vaccines are reached in time, the supply chains are properly managed, and over and above that, there is no counterfeiting. There could be a possibility of counterfeiting. So the IIoT concepts that we can apply, when you're transferring the vaccines from the place of manufacture to the warehouses, and then from there to the healthcare centers, etc. You need to manage the ambience in which it is, transported, temperature, humidity, stuff like that. And you can have IIoT concepts which will transmit that data and will always be captured so that you are assured of the quality. And also the counterfeiting, where you can have certain ways in which you can detect whether the shipment which was sent from the manufacturing location is exactly the same as what has reached the healthcare center. So I can go on and on. Each industry has its unique problems, but the concepts of IIoT can be really extended to all of them.
Wonderful. Sangeet, you already referred to sort of one of the challenges, which is maturity of sensors. So do we have the ecosystem in India to enable it, or are there pieces of the ecosystem that are missing? Say, I mean, it's fashionable to compare everything with China. You can compare it with China or with anyone. Saying, where are we in terms of availability of every element of the ecosystem? Say you were going into a warehouse and you wanted to automate it. How Atmanirbhar are we?
Okay, so as far as ecosystem is concerned, and if I compare it with, let us say, China, because we compete with many of these companies outside India, not in India to that extent, but outside India, we see when we manufacture certain equipments and robot in our case, so they have the ecosystem of all the parts. So even the motors would be manufactured, drives, drive cards, sensors, etc. Everything, there would be suppliers for them. For us in India, we have to depend. If we say we will not be taking it from China because of so reason, then we have to depend on suppliers from outside India, mostly European or Japanese suppliers. So that is one thing as far as ecosystem is concerned. Second thing about the ecosystem which I want to point out is in some of the other advanced countries or in China, there would be supply. So if I have to build something, I can take help from my supplier company who can technically help me in solving one part of the problem. Now that luxury, we don't have it to the extent that we would like to have, and that is where Plug-in Alliance might help us in future. Today, if I am facing a problem in building a particular a robot, a particular equipment, that even the part which should not be my core, even for that part, I need to build the expertise to build a quality product. And that is where we stand in India as far as ecosystem is concerned. And these ecosystems have come up very rapidly because Industry 4.0 itself is a new concept, and it is a lot of technologies coming together, sensors and communication technology and the cloud and the software, etc. We are very good in the software part of it, and we are gaining the knowledge about, because the new connectivity, new form of connectivity is coming, and that we are gaining knowledge. The sensors, the transducers, the optical thing, that is something we need to build in as far as the ecosystem is concerned in India. And yeah, those ecosystems require a huge amount of investment and huge amount of government support. And I think at this point of time, we are lagging behind as far as.
Okay, Sangeet, very, very helpful. I want to now switch a little bit to what can a collaboration like the Plug-in Alliance do? What I'm hearing from all of you is, listen, the time is now. The opportunity is significant. If anything, the pandemic has accelerated adoption. I'm equally hearing from you that there are specific nuances that need to be solved. Sangeet talked about availability of ecosystem. I think Ashish, you talked about extending it to MSMEs. Raman, you talked about moving from pilot to rollout and establishing the business case. So clearly there is something that needs to be done. So I'm going to go around and say, what in your mind will success for the Plug-in Alliance be? What will keep you interested in a group like this? So Christine, where have you seen other alliances like this? What would your dream vision for Plug-in in India be?
Yes, thanks for the question, Ramesh. So Intel has a long history of building and creating ecosystems to allow for industry transformations to happen. And we've been doing the same here in the industrial sector, whether it's in the manufacturing or utility energy type of space. What we do is we look for these kinds of local alliances that come together. And there are some that don't globally, things like the work that's happening in the process automation space. But there are many of these alliances that need to come together to really bring together the ecosystem, and our participation has become an integral part in helping bring together and also supporting having what we call market-ready solutions that are ready that are validated, ready to scale, and have solutions across the various industries. And we've built up an ecosystem in many areas. What I'm so excited about is Plug-in Alliance coming together in India to really bring together the end-to-end capabilities and solutions that are needed to have these, like I said, these market-ready solutions that we have in our ecosystem and in partnership in this alliance to allow for that local scale to solve the local challenges or the local focuses that the industry has. So I'm excited to see the outcomes of this, that collaboration to happen to bring this capability to all ranges of manufacturers, utilities in India-based market.
Raman, what would your expectations be? What is your wish list? What will keep you interested in an alliance like this?
So it's more than expectation. I'm already doing it along with Intel, essentially working with some of the startup alliance partners in order to take it to market. Because what is interesting is, like what Sangeet talked about, right? You need an ecosystem which is able to come in to help you rather than start everything grounds up, because that is going to essentially defeat the purpose. So you definitely need some of these niche players who essentially come in as Plug-in Alliance. And we are already working with a couple of them along with Intel in this space. And the interesting thing is we are able to play our part. We are able to plug in algorithms coming from them to create a complete solution and then go for a fast POC, because that is what interests the enterprises today. So if I say that I want to do a POC, can I do it in 4 weeks? Can I do it in 6 weeks? Can I get to see the results before I jump on to the next thing? Because speed definitely matters. And here we are definitely interested in doing this, and we are already doing this. And this would be definitely a game changer from a point of view of seeing adoption in a much faster pace compared to doing it all over from ground up.
No, I'm glad you're already doing it. I completely agree. And this country has had multiple examples of leapfrog, right? We went from no phones to mobile phones. We skipped the phase of landlines. I think something similar may happen with electric vehicles, whereas for a lot of people, the first vehicle that they buy in India could well be an electric vehicle. So I think there are lots of examples, and maybe this is an area where even the Alliance can help leapfrog a lot of it. Ashish, you from your vantage, from your vantage point, what would your expectations from an Alliance be?
Well, Ramesh, I think I'm the new member here. Today is my first day. So I have to, first
so you have the luxury of dreaming the most.
Yes, maybe. I have the license today. But what I'm really looking for is, just connect with the bright minds in the industry who are like-minded. And, just understand how everybody else is thinking. That will be my starting point, because this is not something that only one company is going to pull off. It's going to require a lot of collaboration for sure. And any company which thinks that, they are just going to innovate everything by themselves and they'll become the big gorilla of the industry, that's, they are completely mistaken. So that is the first point. I want to connect with the bright minds in the industry. The second thing I would say is there are diverse viewpoints, and that diversity will bring a lot of good ideas, and they may not be a full solution, but they could be good components that could be connected. So connecting the dots by plugging into this system is what I'm looking at as well, so that we can help each other and it is mutually beneficial by sharing and learning from each other. And the last one I would say is maybe in large multinational companies, there can be a mindset of, just bringing in something that is proven elsewhere and then applying it to the local markets. And that, as I made the point earlier, may not be the best way to deal with this. And therefore, how can we encourage the thinking of new products, the thinking of creating something here that is fit for purpose in the Indian market, and therefore scaling it up and sharing that with this alliance is what I'm really looking forward to.
Wonderful. Sangeet, you referred to a few things, but specific expectations from, and you speak on behalf of the startup ecosystem.
So one of the things which I just pointed out is I would be interested, and or all startups would continue to be interested in being in this alliance. We will get to, if I know that I will get a help where in one particular technology which I am not good at or which I am not supposed to do. So can I take help from some other startup or some other expert in solving that problem for me? So that is one thing which will keep me interested, and I'll be excited about it. The other thing in terms of from the startup perspective, and one of the things which was spoken about is how can we solve the problem of MSMEs and at a cost which is affordable to them, and to make them productive in comparison to other MSMEs anywhere in the world. So that would be another for my one. We will know the problem which needs to be solved, and maybe as a startup, I do not have access to all those problems which are there, which needs to be solved, because I don't have the bandwidth to go to so many companies and so many people. So if I get real challenging problem, and if I am able to solve one or two of them, that would give me or give our company a great boost up. So that is another thing which I would be looking for. And the third thing is, I'll be very proud personally if we can solve problem for few MSMEs to make them very, very productive in comparison to productivity level across the world. That would be another thing which would really, really excite me.
Wonderful. Maybe I take the last few minutes to just bring it all together. I would probably make 4 sets of observations. The first is actually the starting point in India is a weak one. I mean, it goes, it's quite commonly known that India's manufacturing is punching far below its weight in its GDP. And same with logistics. Okay, I think as a country, Sangeet, we spend 3 to 4% more of our GDP because of inefficient logistics. So we have a little bit of a starting position handicap, because that's where we've come from. That said, I genuinely think that Industry 4.0 could be the leveler for India, because it in a way brings our capabilities to bear. And I really hope this is our leapfrog opportunity. And therefore, we are talking about the right idea at the right time. And like some of you alluded to it, the pandemic has advanced it. The third takeaway I have is that this cannot be around getting solutions from around the world and sticking it into India. It has never worked for us. At the end of the day, there has to be a flavor of India-specific innovation, India-specific solutions that work for the ecosystem in India, that work for the MSMEs in India, and that frankly, come up with solutions for India. And I think in the context of these 3 is where I would make the 4th point, that alliancing is important, right? When the first objective is to grow overall industry, alliancing works, right? It is really about 1 + 1 = 3. If the pie grows, then everyone grows. And we are at a stage where we need to make the pie grow. So I think we are sitting at the launch of the Plug-in Alliance. We are sitting at an appropriate time. And I can see lots of exciting possibilities. I wish all participants the best. And thank you all for being in this panel. Thank you.
A big thank you to all our panelists. That was indeed an informative session packed with insights. Let's now hear from a few more industry leaders on the Alliance.
And we are extremely delighted and excited to have partnered with Plug-in Alliance. I feel this is a great initiative for the entire ecosystem, considering the entire drive of Industry 4.0 in India during the COVID times has kind of accelerated our growth in the SME segment, or be it startup space, and giving us the next leap in terms of digitizing our old industries and moving to the next level of growth. I personally feel that this initiative will bring forth and bring forward great ideas, solutions, products by extremely talented individuals and founders, and help them leverage the ecosystem, help them leverage the industry connect, and also help them in adopting and pushing their products out. And with that, I'm extremely delighted to be here and looking forward to interacting with various founders and reviewing and understanding, and most importantly, learning more about these solutions.
Hi, my name is Vishwanath Rao. I'm the country managing director for Altair in India. Altair is a technology leader in the areas of physics-based simulation, high-performance computing, machine learning, data analytics, and Industry 4.0. Altair is very happy and proud to be associated with the Plug-in Alliance program. We're very happy to be working with all the alliance partners within Plug-in. Since Altair has significant amount of experience in the area of physics-based simulation, data analytics. We are playing the role of a partner from an Industry 4.0 perspective, primarily helping startups, with all our technology, as well as mentorship in the Industry 4.0 areas. We believe this is a very strong alliance, and it's going to have a fairly large impact on the startup ecosystem in terms of how they're going to evolve over the next half a decade or so. So I'm very thankful for making us part of this collaboration and look forward to working closely with all collaboration partners. Thank you.
I am Sambit Sahu. I lead IoT engineering in Intel. Congratulations in forming this plugin alliance for the very exciting Industry 4.0 agenda. It's great to see India Inc. taking the lead here with industry big players, the startup ecosystem, the academics, the investors, and the government all coming together on such an important agenda. I am super excited about it, and I'll be happy to contribute to this agenda. All the best.
Hi. Today we are living in a digital world. Digitalization is helping us as industries to not only work innovatively, but it is helping us sustain, helping us grow, and helping us being globally competitive. Industry 4.0 is picking up very, very rapidly because it has shown how it can uncover the various, the wastages which are lying. It brings the virtual thing to the real world. Things like ML, AI, XR. These technologies, emerging technologies, are really helping us connect the virtual reality, and we have witnessed this in this pandemic. We are very happy and we are very, very proud to be associated as an alliance member. We are looking forward to meeting the best of the brains, the creative brains, who will help us take the next leap. And we are very confident that this ecosystem will bring a lot of advantages to the system. Proud to be part of Plugin Alliance. Thank you.
I'm great to be part of this alliance that Intel has started with IIT Mumbai SINE. I think it's a great effort and endeavor by Intel to do work with an academic institution like IIT Mumbai, and also involve the industry in it to see what best can be done in bringing innovative products into the Indian product ecosystem. Many of us have been working at it very fervently to ensure that India becomes a product nation, and India is on the roadmap of being one of the pioneers in developing products for the world. And these kinds of alliances will add fillip to that entire endeavor that many of us are trying. And moreover, Intel has been pivotal in running various programs for high-tech and deep-tech startups, in helping them startups, and IdeaSpring itself has been a beneficiary of that. But this overall effort to bring this alliance together along with industry participants to further the entire Indian product ecosystem will be a great effort. And we are very happy to be a part of it. I'm sure rest of the players in the ecosystem will also be very happy and will benefit significantly. And we look forward to working closely with both Intel and IIT Mumbai in this effort. Thanks.
Thank you to all the leaders. We are confident that your contributions to the Alliance will help accelerate meeting its objectives. We'd also like to thank the other member leaders who have shared their wishes and messages via video. We'd hope to share all these videos with our audience in due course. Now that brings us to the final session of the day, a unique format that we'd like to refer to as Hard Talk, essentially a rapid fire verbal jugalbandi. I'd like to invite Arpit Agarwal, Director, Bloom Ventures, and Derek Jose, co-founder, Flutura, to talk about investments in smart industrial solutions.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity to be part of this August gathering, and very excited about how we are participating in Plugin Alliance. I think this is a great initiative. We are putting together what our ecosystem in India absolutely needs it in much larger scale and size. And the initiative is working out to put together a great set of people, various parts of the ecosystem. And today I have my good friend, Derek, with me. And together we are going to talk about a bunch of things about funding, especially related to industrial IoT sector, Industry 4.0. Just to give you background, guys, my name is Arpit. I have been working with Bloom Venture. We are an early stage venture capital firm. I look at deep tech, including industrial IoT and IoT. And I also look at healthcare sectors. One of my investments has been in electric vehicles and healthcare companies. I have been also involved in this initiative called India Deep Tech, where Derek is a volunteer. And together we are trying to do something very similar there also. So Derek, I want to ask you, how do you define Industry 4.0? Why don't you talk a little bit about Flutura and yourself, and then please tell us a little bit about how Industry 4.0 is going to be such a revolution, and why are we calling this fourth industrial revolution?
Sure. Thank you, Arpit, and thank you, Intel, for giving us an opportunity. So Flutura is an industrial AI company, which is focused on the energy and engineering sector. Some of our customers include Shell, Technip FMC. We focus on impacting three outcomes. One is equipment life outcomes, process quality outcomes, and powering new business models where digital monitoring and analytics is part of a new value-added services, which goes along with electromechanical equipment. That's myself and Flutura in a nutshell. Industry 4.0 is a very exciting area in the sense that the industrial sector has always been lagging behind the consumer sector by 5 to 10 years always. So you've seen a lot of leapfrogging in the areas of retail, banking, telecom, etc. A lot of disruption has happened. Industrial side is just getting started off. They're a little conservative bunch, I would say. And the wave is just getting started, and it's always good to join the early part of a wave. So in this Industry 4.0 category, we are able to look at 9 buckets, I would say, 9 buckets of companies. So for example, we have robotics-oriented companies. For Mitra, which is run by Balaji, we have Akash, who runs Orangewood Labs. So robotics is one bucket company which is emerging out of India. The second, I would say, is in the area of sensor intelligence. So we have Rahul, who's running ExactSpace. There is Nui, there is Minto.ai, a bunch of companies which are focused on analyzing sensor signals, detecting anomalies, and impacting process outcomes. The third bucket of companies is in the autonomous driverless vehicle category. Natrodyne became a unicorn. We have Aarti Motors and a lot of other startups. For example, there is a company which is focused on autonomous trucks out of India. So that's the third category of companies which I see emerging. Fourth is sound and vision intelligence. We always had Tombo, which was a poster child, which specialized in thermal imaging. Today we have A Squared IoT, which focuses on sound analytics. So it's kind of like a Shazam for equipment. So you're able to point an app at an equipment which is making noise and tell you how long you'll live. Fairly game-changing applications, I would say. Then fifth is in the satellite intelligence space itself. So
imagining that piece of equipment listening to our voices and telling us how long we live.
Although it could be bi-directional. Could be bi-directional. So in fact, the machines will know us much better than our family members, I would say.
As if they don't already do.
Interesting one. The fifth is in the what I would call the eye in the sky category, satellite intelligence. So you have Vinay, who runs SkyServe. So they can point a satellite at an industrial operations and count gas emissions, rate at which an activity is happening and stuff like that. Sixth is in the industrial AR VR capability itself. So you have these digital twins which are being created for this complex equipments and machineries. And if you want to quickly get situational awareness of the health of the equipment or the process, companies like Fabric, run by Puneet, will give you, so you can wear a headset, and it's essentially a kind of a telemedicine for equipment. So you can go inside the heart of an equipment sitting very remotely, you know. Seventh is in the edge intelligence space, where there's no cloud at all. Cloudless edge intelligence space in ruggedized environments where you're detecting, sensing signals and responding to it in real time. So SwitchOn is one company. Anirudh, who runs SwitchOn, is a good friend of ours. And last two categories I wanted to touch upon is not early stages would be in industrial 3D printing. Not many companies have started out of India, but I think it'll explode in the next couple of years. And last but not the least is industrial grid security. I think that is going to be a massive category because power grids in the US have been hacked. Oil and gas grids in Saudi Arabia have been hacked. So that's going to create a massive opportunity for specialized players in the industrial grid security space. So these are the 9 buckets of clusters we see emerging, and all of them are at various stages of evolution and poised to go dramatically in the next 2 to 5 years, I would say.
Superb. And I'm so glad that I have you with me on this call, because I definitely don't have the kind of depth that you have, Derek. And thank you for covering. It's a very vast landscape. And while you are mentioning about startups, there is, of course, a conversation where you should talk about how all the industrial companies, for example, the GE and Siemens of the world, are putting together platforms, how the cloud players are putting together platforms which can use this on the edge, on the server side, or wherever. Then there are people who are vendors who are providing all the sensors, the large companies and producing. For example, Intel, I'm sure, has several offerings in the industrial IoT space, whether that's a processor or a memory or edge devices. And so this is very, very large ecosystem. And we're not just talking about, still talking about the system integrators who are putting these together, right? Who are doing excellent job of understanding the complexity and actually delivering a solution. And then there are players who are making out of the box solutions for a specific industry, and those solutions have become very large, complicated applications. For example, Pari Electronics, and so on. These are turnkey kind of things. Very good, thank you. And this is great starting point. I want to add a little flavor to this from the kind of description. There are companies which are at early stage and typically try to solve one niche problem in one particular industry. And then there are companies which are sort of broad and they want to do a lot of things together. And in some cases, in some cases, they may actually be in a bit of a challenge because they want to solve a lot of problems together, but there is no use case being created. You can have a toolkit, you can have a Swiss Army knife, but if no one knows what problem to solve or how to use that screwdriver or knife, it's very hard to really build a solution, to find value in the platform, right? And this is one more thing which brings me to this aspect of funding. And I want to, and I know that this is the important part that we want to cover here. What I've seen happening is that the funding piece has always been a challenge for especially companies in the industrial IoT sector, not because, Industry 4.0 in general, not only because the companies don't have traction, and as even in India, some of the companies you're mentioning have a lot of revenue. When I say a lot of revenue, at least a few $1 million of revenue, and are growing quite fast. One important challenge that they always face is that the investors who are, there are two kind of investors amongst many other classifications. One is a person who's sitting in India and a person or a firm sitting in the US. The person who's sitting in India doesn't see India market to be very large, and it is not very large by any stretch as compared to, let's say, US. And therefore they are stopping themselves at funding them. And the companies in India, in America, for example, they're thinking, okay, yes, good guy, good technology is sitting in India very well, but how do I relate to this? Is there a customer in the US? And if they are going to have customers in the US, do I see some proof? And that is not happening. So one important challenge that I have continuously seen with our ability to fund, and I'm being relatively straight here, is that unless you see traction in the home market, and the home market is large enough, you will not see a lot of funding flowing into the sector. So I think while our companies are doing excellent job of getting POCs up and also revenue in various countries, we probably need to work harder to get them have traction in the US market. What do you think is possible, and how do you think this is going to happen in a manner that the entire ecosystem can grow?
Yeah, oh, very great point, because I think the fuel which powers the ecosystem is funding itself, and it's very important to track the cash flows. From my vantage point, I see four kinds of actors out there. One is niche industry 4.0 oriented funds, for example, from Momenta Partners in the US. They're completely focused on industry 4.0. Then you have these giants, I would say, who have set up Bay Area industrial scouts, so to speak. Siemens has Next 47, ABB, Hitachi, Saudi Aramco has their own funds, which is chasing. So if you build a relationship with the scouts out there, then you get discovered by that fund. So that's one pathway which is available. Third is, of course, the traditional VC round, Bloom, all of them. And fourth is a government. And Arpit, this is one place I wanted your perspectives on. You. How do you see the funding pathways emerging for Indian companies? There are some of these things, but do you see this shift actually dramatically?
I see a very interesting trend out here. What is happening is that there is a pool of capital which is called patient capital that is now becoming available. I was researching space tech industry 2 years back in the US. And when I look at the history of this, of course, you know about SpaceX, you know about, once in a while, you might hear about someone called Burt Rutan, who's created this Spaceship One and so on. And it recently touched the edge of the space and came back. The important piece is that while you hear about 2 success stories, there are at least 20 which came very close. And those 20 were not funded by venture capitalists because it's a pie in the sky. There's no one who knows how it's going to happen. However, a lot of, I dare not use this probably of use, but it's a bit loaded term, but billionaire money is available. Right now, when people are billionaires, they are making a very long-term decision. They are not necessarily making an exit opportunity decision. This is a challenge with venture funds because our structure is that we have to return capital in a finite amount of time. The money is not patient enough. And unfortunately, our focus also is not on the soft aspect of the business. It is almost always about, okay, what will deliver me the best return? So it's very objective in nature. I think patient capital is something that we definitely need in the India sector of industrial IoT. Just for argument's sake, and India has also a fair share of billionaires. If 100 of those billionaires come together and they pool in just $10 million of their wealth, it's $1 billion fund, right? And it can do wonders for the and again, one important piece here is the IRRs can be great, but over a slightly longer period of time. This, I think, has not happened enough in India. Government may facilitate it or not, and I'm not saying this is the only way. Of course, us as VCs also have to learn and have to work with the ecosystem to make sure it works better for everyone's benefit. But yeah, and Plug-in Alliance is one of the ways in which this is going to happen. One other thing that I'm noticing increasingly is that that you are able to get direct access to some of the deep tech funds in the US, and they have, like you said, scouts. They have some people who refer to them from Indian ecosystem, allowing them to get funded directly, get discovered. Some of the companies have raised money, but as anyone can imagine, raising money from US or any other country is going to be slightly harder. So we will have to. I think this is a problem that remains to be solved.
Arpit, I had a follow-up question to the point you made. So from the vantage point of an Indian VC, so there's a perception among the industrial startups that a hardware-oriented company has less chance of getting funded than a lightweight software-oriented industrial 4.0 company. What is your perspective on this? And do you think is this hypothesis true? And how do you see this mental model evolving?
See, this is true, and I wouldn't say it is not true. If you look at an average company getting funded, an average, even B2B SaaS today is getting funded much faster. However, we should notice, and I think this is an important platform for people to get educated. There is a pattern in which you will see this happening. Today, what is happening to B2B SaaS companies in India, where some unicorns have been created, some more are going to happen, is that there is a pattern. There are some success stories, and then they are driving the entire ecosystem all the way to early stage. And because the point is the ecosystem is mature enough that there's talent available at all stages, there's mentoring available, there is a path available for a few companies, not one or two, who have become very, very large. And they're pulling the entire ecosystem together. This also happened about 5-6 years back in the B2C sector, the consumer internet sector in India, where a few unicorns, Flipkart and Ola and others, actually started driving a lot more attention. The path was becoming clearer. B2B SaaS is there. And I'm 100% sure that over the next 3 years, we will see a lot more investment going into the automation and industrial IoT sector in India, because so many large companies would have gotten created at that point of time, forcing a few investors to look back and say, okay, what were the patterns? How do you identify companies at early stage? Ultimately, what we have to agree is, it is about the maturity of the ecosystem and how much an ecosystem is going to support the kind of growth a company is expected to see. It is not only about customers' readiness. It is definitely about them, but it is not only about them, because it is also about right talent being available, right ecosystem being available, right hardware, software vendors being available, mentors be available, the salesperson, marketing person be available. This is going to take a little bit of time. When that happens, I can assure you that you will see a mad rush into the Industry 4.0 companies. Unfortunately, the entrepreneurs today are bearing the brunt of being an innovator, and therefore they don't find themselves in favor. There's nothing wrong about this. It is just that if you are a generic fund like Bloom, and if you have to fund edtech companies and fintech companies and healthcare companies and industrial companies, once in a while industrial company may not find favor. And if you are a deep tech fund which is focused on this, you are not too many. So some companies will still not get funded, even if there are too many deep tech funds, right? So there is going to be that challenge. However, all of us are working hard. I think we will get there together. At this point of time, my advice to entrepreneurs would be that if money is available for anyone, they should please find a way to take it.
Absolutely. As a follow-up to that, I had...
you have too many questions.
Allow me to ask.
You're not allowing me to ask. Please go ahead. I'm loving this.
But I think these are some of the questions which are latent in the minds of many of these startups. Bring it out. So there were 3 funding hypotheses that are there from an industrial point of view. One hypothesis is that if you're narrow and deep in one vertical, for example, oil and gas deep or power sector deep, you have a greater chance of getting funded. That is hypothesis number 1. Hypothesis number 2 is that if you have a breakthrough in outside India customers, you have a greater chance than if you have breakthroughs only in India. And many of the young startups have breakthroughs in India, but have struggled to go outside. And they seem to feel that not having an outside India breakthrough is stalling their ability to get funding. That's the second hypothesis. And the third hypothesis is that I have a strong channel partner. ABB has validated it and they're taking it to the customers. Siemens has validated, and they're taking it to their customers. So what are your thoughts about these 3 hypotheses which are there in the minds of startup founders who are trying to get access to funding? And is it true? Is it not true? Somewhat true.
So the second piece is definitely true. As I mentioned in the start, if you have traction in the US, likely that US VCs are going to get more comfortable in looking at you because they have a reference customer, they see this. And everyone has a view about, a company in India is definitely less tech than company in the US. And the company in US is buying your product, then you are better than company in India buying the same product. It is probably just a perception issue, but it will always stand, and because also referenceability helps. So yes, second hypothesis is true. The first one, I'm not necessarily saying it is true. It always depends on the market size. However, if you're looking at strategic lens, then having an industry focus, a vertical focus is going to be of very high value, because then the strategy can say, this is what I want to buy. Even if this company is not going to become 100 billion revenue or something, I will still, even if it's 25 million revenue, I still want a large piece of this, which is an important piece for them. The third piece is, how do I get traction in the US? It is a tough thing. I think there's no way, and you have done this, right? You have done this so many times. There is no way you can do this unless you are on a flight and you are meeting people and you are really trying very, very hard to get access to customers. It cannot be done on Zooms.
It cannot be done on Zooms.
It cannot be done on Zooms. And my heart goes out to all the entrepreneurs who are trying their very best to do it from here. It must be very hard to pull that off.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you have a few customers, you have a few salespeople, and maybe they are able to get something done. But without a founder being present in the US, is going to be, or any other market, Europe maybe, it's going to be hard.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But that allows me to ask you one question, which is very important.
Go for it.
So, because I was very cognizant that traction is an important piece. Companies want to make sure that they have revenue. They want to get access to the market. What kind of partnerships have you seen? Which I think we haven't talked enough about in this ecosystem. What kind of partnerships have you seen which allow the companies to go much faster? You mentioned ABB, I think, and maybe there are others. Have you seen a few case studies which have really worked well?
Yeah. So if you look at the sales, at least from personal experience, if you look at Flutura's sales experience pre-COVID and post-COVID, we have pivoted from a Lone Ranger sales. We used to go direct and Lone Ranger sales to what we call as ride on the shoulders of giants kind of a thing, because we can't zoom it out, right?
Yeah,
we can't zoom our way to a contract. So partnerships have been is very important. So there are partners of multiple shapes and forms. For us, one of the partnerships, two flavors of partnerships have worked. One is a partnership with industrial OEMs. So for example, Technip FMC is one of the largest manufacturers of subsea equipments. So we partnered with them. Very simple thing. So every time they sell an equipment, the diagnostics and prognostics part of it is by Flutura. So we are kind of inside the belly of the equipment. So when the equipment sells, the software sells, and it's it's a rev share kind of a thing. So partnerships like that, where we're very firmly embedded into the belly of equipments, and they take your digital solutions to their customers, is an elegant path to non-linear scale, I would say.
How do you attract such partners if you're a new startup?
There is no, I mean, we were working with them for 3 years before we achieved this.
3
I don't know
years.
that's magic answer, because we did a lot of projects with them, projects.
Okay.
And they did experience failures with a lot of local startups out there in Houston, which helped us also in some shape or form.
Yeah.
The second kind of partnerships we are seeing is with the software kind of thing.
System integrators, you mean?
Yeah, Intel, for example.
Yeah.
So there could be a hardware accelerator on top of it. Now, what happens there is, in these kind of things, they set up massive platforms in which you can get discovered. So if you're a young startup with, you're a small fish in a small pond, you suddenly become a small fish in a big pond, and they help you getting discovered. And discoverability is key. Intel, for example, has taken our vision intelligence solution to a lot of their prospects and customers. We had a lot of interesting conversations. So these kind of partners can accelerate conversations at scale. Then it's up to us to go ahead and close it. That's a different thing. But they can open the doors. They can start a conversation. They can get you the first date. After that, it's up to you. And these kind of things are very, very important, I would say. Yeah.
Have you seen any important role being played by industry organizations like Plugin Alliance?
Yes. So I think this would be a perfect platform to aid discoverability. So they would run a lot of these platforms where customers, investors, startups all come and collide. And increasing the frequency of collisions is important. And these kind of platforms will increase the frequency of collisions between all these three actors: venture capitalists, customers, and startups. And I think once you increase the frequency of collisions, magic can happen.
Yeah, when you increase collisions, I know bombing happens.
Bombing happens. So you prime the ecosystem, right? And they're priming the ecosystem. Yeah. And I think it's very important to catalyze that.
Yeah.
With this, we come to the end of the Plugin Alliance launch. It's been a wonderful evening packed with insight and inspiration, and I do hope the audience and all our viewers felt the same. With that, I'd now hand it over to Amit Chatterjee, Industrial IoT Segment Leader and Strategic Business Development at Intel India, to deliver the thank you note.
Thank you, Shivani. I would like to take this opportunity to first thank all the speakers, Alliance members, and the vibrant audience for being with us today. I would also like to thank the members behind the scene from Your Story, Sign, and Intel, without whom this event would not have been possible. You have heard all the eminent speakers and their opinions. To summarize, we understand that technology adoption as part of future industries is no longer a wish list, but a necessity. These solutions need to be smart, scalable, secure, flexible, and should leverage the power of data. Industry 4.0, a fusion of physical and digital, and its adoption is not one person's responsibility. Quoting Steve Jobs here, technology itself is not enough. We need to work as a community, and Plugin Alliance is an attempt to connect us all. Looking forward to everyone's support and participation for us to win together.
Thank you, Amit, for the closing remarks. I'd now like to urge the audience to feel free to tweet or post your key takeaways on social media with the hashtag Plugin Alliance India. If you'd like to be part of the Alliance or know more about it, do visit www.plugin.org.in for more. Thank you so much for being a spectacular audience and joining us for this very special event.